Chapter 1. It's done, I've done it. In a cave in the snowfield, a young and handsome man looked at the miniature glowing tower in front of him with a fanatical look. The smile on his face has reached the point where he can't suppress it at all. If it weren't for the fact that his feet were not flat enough and not soft enough. At this moment, I'm afraid he would have to twist and turn like a maggot. Genius, I am indeed a genius that is one in a million. Su ran. A lucky and unlucky time traveler. Half a year ago, he was sent to another world by a truck driver to boost his performance. If it were most young people, perhaps they would have been ecstatic at this moment, but he is different. Because he started with a collapse of the sky, in a vast snowfield, luckily he is bound to a system. You can get the opportunity to choose rewards by completing some tasks, in order to make up for the collapse of the sky. The system gave a free opportunity to choose and enough supplies to live for a year, the power to beat all living things in the current world, or wisdom beyond imagination. At that time, Su Ran was so cold that he couldn't walk at all, but because of the cold, he was unexpectedly sober. He was not attracted by the so-called invincible power, but he chose wisdom. As for the reason tilde, it's also very simple. He got the system, and there will definitely be more than one chance to choose in the future. He chose to strengthen his brain so that when he gets more chances to choose rewards in the future, he can use the strengthened brain to make the most correct choice. The rest is also very simple. After getting this wisdom and using it for a while, he understood that this is not a simple improvement of wisdom. This is clearly the power of I think I can do it. With this wisdom, what is power? He is not a reckless man who likes to use fists. While talking and laughing, the masts and oars were destroyed. How cool is this? So, in this short period of 6 months, he relied on this wisdom of I think I can do it, successfully created the plasma sparks in the special drama Ultraman. About this artificial sun that can evolve humans into Ultraman, this light illuminates the entire cave. It's better than a fire. Considering the importance of this power, he thought for a long time. He decided to pick up the light and put it directly into his body. Because it was made to fit the human body, and it was made when resources were scarce, it's not as good as the real sun. It can't kill a person, hiss. After putting this so-called plasma spark light directly into the body, Su Ran took a deep breath, although it won't burst a person, but letting this energy directly integrate into the human body. It's really terrifying. At this moment, he can also clearly feel that his body seems to be penetrated by a force. It spreads from the chest, and at this moment, he can't use his body. Isn't this script taken wrong? When the body cannot be controlled, the so-called balance naturally no longer exists. Su Ran fell straight to the ground. He could only stare blankly at the ceiling. Before he completely lost control of his eyes, he blinked hard. Then he fell into darkness. There was no perception, not even a little light. Even the light imagined in his mind could not appear. What happened just when Su Ran was about to fall into despair? A dazzling red light appeared. It occupied his entire sight. A machine appeared in front of Su Ran. What I built seems to be a plasma spark. What is this thing? He looked at the big head of the machine in front of him blankly. Question, what species are you? The huge machine asked Su Ran a question. I'm still a human. He raised his arm. With the red light emitted by the 2 eyes of the robot head in front of him, he could see his body, which was still human skin. It's a pity that he couldn't become Ultraman. Even my power of thinking can't do it. It's worthy of being an idealist. Vito, you are not a carbon-based creature. The big machine denied Su Ran's answer. Isn't it? Then I should have succeeded. He was more curious about the success of his experiment than the machine in front of him. Question, are you life? Su Ran did not respond to this question immediately, but after being happy for a while, after calming down, he answered again, of course, in my opinion, as long as you have thoughts and emotions, even if your heart doesn't beat, you are still life. The red light flashed for a while. The big machine spoke again. Are you willing to become an envoy on the path of intelligence? Su Ran was silent. He began to think. Half a year of loneliness and enthusiasm for scientific research made him ignore the game he had remembered. Collapse Star Railway. He also forgot what the intellectual star god looked like. So when he first saw this big machine, he couldn't recognize it. After all, the first thing he saw in the game was the big red light. That was the side, not the front. After all, his wisdom is very useful, but he didn't have extra leisure time to recall the games he played before. Until now, Snowfield, is this, Urilovi? No, this is a primitive planet, and the creatures here cannot travel in outer space. Bo Shizun dispelled his expectations. Okay. Su Ran was a little disappointed. I thought I could see Yaya Zir here. I am willing to accept your blessing. It won't hurt for me to become a messenger. He is not a conspiracy theorist. He also remembered the setting in Collapse Iron, that humans cannot use their own values to determine the good and evil of the star god. The sight returned to the light. Su Ran woke up in the cave, feeling the surging power in his body. The joy that had originally calmed down emerged again. Soon after, such a message came from the universe. Su Ran, the 85th seat of the Genius Club, exists on a remote and tiny planet, creating a kind of intelligent life that is close to perfection. It cannot be solved, its composition cannot be understood, and it has the characteristics of immortality. Chapter 2, different from the Boshi Society. Every member of the Genius Club is extremely valuable, because the prerequisite for entering the Genius Club is to get a glimpse of Boshi-zun. Being noticed by Boshi-zun means that the wisdom of that person is no longer within the reach of ordinary people. Every member of the Genius Club is rare and valuable. Any genius is a coveted existence for all major forces. Soon all the major forces in the universe began to look for this genius. But unfortunately, the content of the news sent by the Genius Club is very little. It just lets people know that there is such a genius in this universe. As for where, there is really no place to investigate. On a remote planet, the universe is so big, and there are so many planets that can survive. Who knows which one it is? If you want to see this new genius, I'm afraid you have to wait for him to show up. All the major forces are very curious about this genius. Even the other geniuses in the Genius Club are the same, especially seat hash 81. As an expert in the field of life, Yuan Mei was naturally very interested in this scholar who created a life that even Bo Shizun could not structure. Even the star god could not analyze the life. This undoubtedly made her curious. Even though she was not good at socializing, she wanted to meet this new member at this moment. Perhaps there would be many common topics between them. Who tilde this wave of blood prophet tilde? Su Ran looked very happy. It can only be said that his luck was off the charts. A simple imitation. It is not even clear how similar it is to the real thing. As a result, he got a glimpse from the star god, directly gave him the blessing of the level of the commander. Now he has brains and strength, even if he is an intellectual commander who is not good at fighting. It is also the combat power of the commander level. His strength is already stronger than the vast majority of Destiny Walkers, belongs to the T1 level. As for T0, it still belongs to the group of star gods, But it doesn't matter for him. It is only a matter of time to surpass the star god. After all, he has the system and the wisdom of the level that I think he can do. There are almost no problems in this world that can stump him. But since it is the Star Railway universe, where is this place? Since there are star gods, then if nothing unexpected happens, this is a planet in the Star Dome Railway world, you. Plasma sparks strengthened his body and gave him huge energy, and the blessing of the level of the order also added a lot of guarantees to his combat power. Why do I feel like I have just started a business? I have already achieved financial freedom. Is it because I am too powerful? The sporadic sounds in the cave disturbed Su Ran, who was still immersed in joy. Several strangers broke into his residence. Is this the source of that power? Who are you? The leader asked. Su Ran looked unhappy. This is my residence. Facing the owner here, you should be the ones who need to explain your identity, right? His power should belong to the top of the pyramid on this planet, unless there are other orders here, or a star god suddenly appears. Otherwise, he just doesn't want to eat beef. These people should also follow his lead, instead of just questioning him. A man in armor stood up in the lead. This is the snowy plain in winter, the land belonging to Her Majesty, the Ice Queen. You are the outsider. Winter, Ice Queen, it turns out that it's not just star iron, and oh, that's fun. Su Ran's eyes lit up. Then it's not difficult to identify these people. The armored man at the head should be the Fatui's executive officer, the captain, after all, this kind of dull and serious voice. It's not something that ordinary minions can have. Is that so, Tilda? Because of the enhancement of plasma sparks and the blessing of wisdom. So Su Ran is terribly strong at this moment. Leave now, no one will get hurt. The Fatui, led by the captain, were full of questions. Now it's the other way around. This is the Queen's territory. Is this the reversal of Tiangang? Otherwise, you will all die. The captain's face was gloomy, looking at Su Ran's fighting spirit. He took a fighting stance. In this case, there is no room for negotiation. I will capture you. Then let Her Majesty, the Queen, personally convict you. The wind and snow continued to ravage the snowfield. The bodies of the Fatui soldiers were scattered in the cave, in the face of absolutely powerful forces. The role of the miscellaneous soldiers was just to make the battlefield more bloody. They were not even sending heads. Su Ran stepped hard on the captain. One hand was still holding his helmeted head. Your strength is really not to be underestimated. I almost took it seriously, Captain. The strength of both sides is indeed very unequal. It was just a simple test, but after seeing that there was a possibility of breaking the things in his cave, Su Ran was nervous, so he killed the miscellaneous soldiers in a few seconds, and suppressed the captain severely. There was no room for fighting back. I'm curious about what your face looked like under your helmet. The captain gnashed his teeth and responded, You are humiliating a soldier. He values honor the most, even in the Fatui organization. He is the most noble and fair being, but he never thought that he would be humiliated like this. Oh, let's do this. I'll be a good person and crush your head and helmet together. In this way, even if you die, no one will know what you look like. As he said this, Su Ran's palm began to exert force. The captain's helmet, which was forged with fine ore, also made a crackling sound. There were even several cracks. The captain no longer resisted at this moment. Please stop, strange alien. The sudden voice made Su Ran's hand pause. He looked inexplicable. There was no one around, and the speaker was obviously not here. Then beg me. As soon as these words came out, the captain, who was suppressed by him, began to resist vigorously in vain, trying to stop it. Please, don't hurt him. Really. Su Ran loosened his hand and let the executive go. Chapter 3. The captain looked at the wreckage on the ground and finally set his sights on Su-ran. I don't like people like you, but now Her Majesty the Queen wants to see you. He had just received a message from the Ice Queen. Bring the person in front of him to Winter City. The Ice Queen wants to meet this outsider in person. This outsider is so powerful that it is terrifying, although the Fatui do not reject outsiders. However, as an executive, the captain has no good feelings for Su-ran, because in his eyes, the person in front of him is just a person who has tarnished his glory and acted recklessly. But his strength is exactly what the Fatui and Her Majesty the Queen need. It just so happens that I am also interested in her. Su-ran took out a small ring and swept it at the things in the cave. The originally densely packed living resources and a series of scientific research tools were collected in it. This was made by him in imitation of a storage ring. After all, it would be very troublesome to move. It would be more convenient to make a simple prop for storage. The captain looked at the ring in his hand and was very surprised. Such a storage device that can store objects is very valuable. Perhaps there is a similar magic in Liu, but it is not available in Zhidong. If you can have such a magic weapon, in the future you can save the trouble of shipping supplies when leading troops to fight. However, such a magic weapon is also extremely precious. The two were enemies just now. He couldn't ask for it. Su-ran didn't know what the captain was thinking. Wearing a helmet, you can't see his expression. It's even more difficult to guess the other party's thoughts, but if the captain wants it, he doesn't mind giving one. After all, this thing looks precious. In fact, he doesn't need too many. When he was experimenting earlier, he made a few defect. With products, the quality is naturally not comparable to the one in his hand, but it is more than enough for the Fatui. Su-ran has prepared the things he needs to pack. Naturally, there is no need to linger in this cave. After he completed the long-term experiment, there was no need for him to stay here. He preferred places with people to being alone. After all, he was still a creature full of emotions. He was not so rational and arrogant. After walking out of the cave, the captain turned around and punched the cave entrance. He completely sealed the entrance. They are warriors that make Zhidong proud. Since they died here, they should also rest in peace. Sealing the entrance means that no one will come here to disturb the dead souls of the warriors in the future. Redundant. The captain glanced at Su-ran, who seemed to be indifferent. People like you can't understand how precious glory and peace are to warriors. Oh, the captain's contempt was not important to Su-ran. He was not a warrior, so why should he care so much about the so-called glory? If it can't be exchanged for something more substantial, it seems useless to be remembered, but compared to good people, it seemed that bad people are more impressive. The captain went with a group of people. In the end, he only brought back one person, and this person was not from the Fatui, not even from Solstice. In the palace of the Ice Queen, there were several executive officers waiting, a lady with a proud face, a servant who looked like he had nothing to do with it, a doctor with an interested face, a casual soldier who looked indifferent. There is also a young man full of curiosity. There are 5 executive officers present. Further up, the clown stood expressionlessly on the steps under the throne. He looked like a school principal who was about to give a speech, and after that, there was the god who ruled the entire winter, the Queen of Ice. Su-ran looked from bottom to top. Gorgeous crystal shoes, white stockings, gorgeous long skirt with light blue, white and black lines interwoven, 4 spiral drills and long gray hair. No need to confirm, another duck. Although I didn't see the duck of Bangtai, but I was able to see this duck on the continent of Teyvat. Actually, it's not a loss. I just don't know if this duck is stupid or mean at heart. Ban Ye Pai Gu is a treasure. Su-ran looked at the seat of the god and muttered softly. Those executives sent some curious glances. He was not interested either. Still, the duck attracts me a little more. I've brought person, your majesty. The captain knelt on one knee in front of the Ice Queen. This is a soldier's expression of loyalty and submission to his master. Other executive officers may do the same, but they will not be as solemn as the captain. Thank you for your hard work, Capitano. Get up first. The Ice Queen's voice was a little indifferent. The core is not hard, but stupid Tilda. The captain walked to the side and stood with his colleagues. Some people were curious about Su Ran's identity, but because the Ice Queen was present at the moment, they did not communicate privately. Su Ran just stared at the Ice Queen. The two stared at each other for a long time. In the end, the Ice Queen was defeated and spoke first. Are you willing to join the Fatui and become an executive? Rosaline frowned. Tidelia raised his eyebrows. Interesting, Tilda. Daughter was even more curious. Even Elicino's eyes were full of questions. What kind of character is this full of stories, to be able to join the Fatui and become an executive officer? Not only does one have talent, whether it is strength or other talents, but one must also have a story. Elicino thinks so because she also knows the backgrounds of several other executive officers, task release, agree or refuse to join the Fatui. The voice of the system sounded after a long absence. But I am only good at my brain and research ability, not so good at fighting. Even so, are you going to invite me? Su Ran said that he was just a scientist who was powerless. Tartaglia lost interest instantly. Cannon was dismissive. Rosalind showed a bit of disgust on her face. Elicino's eyes were alert. Corners of Capitano's mouth twitched slightly under the mask. Daughter's mouth corners rose, full of interest in this new compatriot. Of course. Whether he can fight, doesn't she, the Ice Queen, know? If she hadn't asked for it quickly. The captain of the executive officers would probably have died on the homeland of Solstice. Okay then. Su Ran agreed. He is a scientist, but he also needs to eat. Funding is also very important. We can't just rely on looting and plundering, right? Chapter 4, regarding this new colleague. Executive officers present all have different ideas. However, judging from the speech just now, this person is obviously a logistics person, rather than a combat person. Have you thought of a suitable code name? After Su Ran agreed, Piro finally spoke. Every executive has his own code name. He is the original executive. Clown is his title. Let me think. How about genius? After all, there is no one smarter than me in this world. Just being able to attract the attention of Bashizan, becoming an intellectual envoy, and joining the Genius Club. It is enough to prove that his talent is not something that can be stopped by the small place of Tevat. Are you trying to say that everyone on Tevat is dumber than you? Daughter said slowly. It seems to be asking, but it is actually a bit provocative. In this way, the new colleague in front of him seems a bit arrogant, isn't it? A fool who can't even leave the planet under his feet. Su Ran walked in front of Daughter. He didn't like Daughter. After gaining wisdom, he could understand his idea of science supremacy, but it didn't mean he could agree with the guy in front of him. Sometimes, in order to get some desired results, it is inevitable to make some sacrifices, but the only thing he couldn't agree with was, this guy was too wasteful. After doing so many inhumane things, the results were so little, the effort and reward were completely inappropriate, and, compared to letting humans pay the price of their lives to obtain the short-term use of the power of demon, why not control the demon directly? Is it because you don't want to? Or is it just that you can't do it? A fool like you, even if it is the Knowledge Society, you are not qualified to step into the threshold. What? You still want to be compared with a genius like me? Su Ran stretched out his hand and gently took off the doctor's head, casually threw it aside. Executives killed the second seat Daughter so easily, even if it was just a slice, but his strength is top. notch. Even Tartaglia didn't think he was completely sure to defeat any of the doctor's slices. Aren't you not good at fighting? After being shocked for a long time, Tartaglia finally recovered. He looked at Su Ran with a shocked face. It was so easy to take off the second seat's head. It didn't even make people react. This a person who is not good at fighting. I understand. Although you are not good at fighting, you are good at killing, right? Tartaria thought he saw the truth at a glance. This explanation was recognized by Alicino. Killing and fighting are indeed two different things. Are you lacking oxygen in your brain? Are you talking nonsense? Su Ran shook his head. Compared to my wisdom, my talent, and my creative possibilities, the force I have is not worth mentioning. I want this guy's seat. Is there any objection? He pointed at Daughter's head and asked everyone present. No objection. Of course, no objection. Both the captain and the Ice Queen knew Su Ran's strength. This time he killed the doctor directly, with one slice. Last time he almost crushed the captain's head. In terms of violence alone, he was already far ahead of many executives. Even the powerful captain was suppressed without any resistance, not to mention the other executives who were at the back of the seats. It's really scary, Tilda. The strength is so strong, which makes me lose an important slice. Another doctor sliced in the winter, after learning the death of the slice that attended the meeting. He also fully realized that the Fatui had joined a colleague who was powerful and even had a similar position to himself. I hope this compatriot can do something that interests me. He didn't care much about his seat being downgraded. On the contrary, as a scientific researcher, he expected someone who could have the same topic as him. Sandoni barely counted as one. It's a pity that the guy's cognition was in great conflict with Daughter. He couldn't keep up with him, so he could only hope that the newcomer would surprise him. A new executive officer has joined the Fatui, codenamed Genius, Su Ran, who defeated the executive officer, Doctor, and got the second seat. From today on, all the executive officers from Doctor onwards will be demoted by one. Poor girl, she hasn't even shown her face once. She has already been squeezed out of the top 3 seats. Columbia. Hey, friend. After walking out of the Ice Queen's palace, Tartaglia called Su Ran, and he also stopped and looked at the young executive officer. Although the two are not much different in age, can you tell me how you and the captain met? I saw that his helmet seemed to be about to break. Did he encounter any danger? Tartaglia did not hide his curiosity at all. The guy in front of him is a powerful existence. It's a pity that he doesn't seem to have the qualifications to challenge him. After all, there are several executive officers above him. He broke into my residence, and I almost crushed his head. In the end, your queen begged me to let him go, so he had the opportunity to bring me here. It's that simple. Since he asked, Su Ran answered truthfully. His perception of Tartaglia is not as bad as that of Dottle. After all, Tartaglia has never been a scientific researcher, and he is not completely an arrogant scientist. He will still treat people of other professions with an equal attitude, and the young man in front of him is not the kind of existence that requires him to make special evaluations, really. Tedalia didn't believe it. The captain lost, is this possible? And Her Majesty the Queen also begged you to let the captain go. Why does this sound like bragging? Alicino, who was passing by, also stopped. I don't believe this truth. The captain's strength is well known, and he is at the top of mankind. He is right next to him. If you don't believe me, ask him. Su Ran pointed to the captain who was passing by. The captain stopped and answered the question. It's true, the second seat is much stronger than me. Huh. Tartaglia was completely dumbfounded. In this way, he wanted to fight with Su Ran. Then he had to defeat the captain first. P.S. In my setting, the captain is the first seat. After all, his code Name is the captain, so it is okay to be the first seat. The clown is the general officer and is not included in the seat ranking. The strongest human can also have the combat power of the god level, and Dottle is a human after all. After all, he was a student of the Order Academy. The captain's strength is the pinnacle of human beings, so it is normal to be stronger than Dottle. As for the 10th seat, I personally tend to reserve it for a certain existence. Maybe the protagonist, or maybe the executive officer of this seat has died long ago, so it was not removed for commemoration, just like the lady's seat was not filled, and after the scattered soldiers modified the world tree, the setting is that the 6th seat was directly vacant for hundreds of years. Above settings are all personal guesses. Please don't worry too much if you are backstabbed by the official. Just treat it as a joke anyway. I am just a fanfiction writer. Chapter 5. The Fatui executive officers have been recruited. This news is a great morale booster for everyone in Solstice. Especially this executive officer has directly taken the 2nd seat. Doesn't this mean that among Solstice's executive officers, there are already 4 with the combat power of the demon god level? However, this is not a good thing for the 7 countries other than the Fatui. The Fatui have always had a very bad reputation in Teyvat. They are domineering and secretly do bad things. They have caused a lot of trouble for each country, just like Mondstadt, which is closest to Solstice. It has suffered from the Fatui. The people here have been bullied in various ways. During the Grand Master's expedition, Mondstadt was in a panic, because not long ago, Teverin, one of the 4 wind guardians, woke up, and it also brought a lot of trouble to Mondstadt, and the Knights of Favonius can't do much about it. One side of the Ice Queen's bedroom, there is a building with a different style. The style of this building does not belong to any of the 7 countries. It does not belong to the destroyed ancient country. That is because this building is right next to the Ice Queen's bedroom, therefore not many people dare to stop here. But today, a special guest is here. The 8th executive officer of the Fatui, Madame. She came to the inside of this strange building. Suran called this place a workshop. This also made Rosaline full of vigilance and precautions. How cruel and disgusting is Dottle's experimental site. She is still clear. The 2nd seat now has stronger power than Dottle. Who knows if it will be more cruel than Dottle? Maybe you will see a pile of corpses as soon as you enter. As an executive lady, although she is not very kind, but she doesn't like to see that kind of cruel scene. Recognition is successful. Welcome to Sue Rand's creative workshop, MS. Rosaline, just as she walked to the door, a green beam scanned, then the door opened. What kind of technology is this? Rosaline was full of doubts. This is much stranger than what Daughter and Sandone did. Do you need guidance, Rosaline? A familiar yet unfamiliar voice made her feel alert. After looking around, she slowly lowered her head without finding any figure. She saw a Q version servant with 2 heads and a height of about 40 cm standing in front of her. He looked up at her expressionlessly. There is no mistake, whether it is the expression or the appearance. It is almost the same as the adult version of Arlecchino. It is this petite body makes the Q version servant in front of him look very cute. You are Arlecchino. How did the 4th seat of the Fatui, the 5th seat now become so cute? Is it because the way she entered the door is not right? The Q version servant nodded and then shook his head. I'm Aricino, but not completely Aricino. You can call me Aricino-chan tilde, Okay, Aricino-chan. Rosaline still couldn't calm down the shock in her heart. She was very curious about what kind of existence this little Arlecchino in front of her was like. This physique was totally unlike what a child could have, or was it? A doll. Where is the genius? Can you take me to see him? Although she was not familiar with the 5th seat, however, This petite Q version of Alicino made it difficult for her to show her previous arrogant attitude. If they were not familiar with each other, she even wanted to hug this little Alicino. The great genius master is making a real killer. If you want to see him, follow me. Alicino turned around and hopped to lead the way for Rosaline. As for why she had to hop, that was naturally because her legs were too short and she walked too slowly. Although she was a Q version servant, she still believed in efficiency. She didn't want to drag down other people's affairs because of her own reasons. It was still faster to hop. Rosaline just watched her hop and hop to take her to find Suran. This is much cuter than the colleague himself. Rosaline always feels that she might like this place, passing through the long corridor. Two finally arrived at the inner area. Arlecchino, Chan only took her to the reception hall. Ah, you guy, don't bite my skirt. Another voice that Rosaline felt very familiar with. She looked in the direction of the voice. I saw a Q version of myself, pushing a Q version of Columbia with a look of disgust, and the Q version of Columbia seemed to be grinding her teeth with her Q version of her skirt. What else can I say? This place called Suran's Creative Workshop, is it? Serious, why does it feel different from the style of the Fatui? Humph, hide a little higher, so you don't have to be afraid. A Q version of Sandone, who is sitting on a 1-meter high table, looked at the two people who were pushing with disdain. The Q version of Sandone was holding a junior high school math book in her hand. It seemed that she had been reading a book before this. Be quiet, there are guests coming. Arlecchino saw the two people who were not in tune and went forward to stop them. If the real executive saw this, how bad would it be? Ah, is there anyone else? The Q version of Rosalind looked at the real Rosalind, who was much taller than her, with a panicked look. This is Rosalind, and this is Columbia. Arlecchino introduced the two people who were playing just now to Rosalind. Then he pointed to the guy sitting at the table. That's Sandone. Sandone on the table adjusted her posture slightly. She didn't intend to pay attention to these people who might interfere with her study. Strange, why do you feel so familiar? Rosalind squinted her eyes and carefully observed the real Rosalind in front of her. HMPH tilde idiot, isn't that you? Sandone on the table snorted coldly and continued to immerse herself in the ocean of knowledge. Rosaline looked at the miniature version of herself in front of her. She slowly approached, and Rosaline also began to slowly raise her head, insisting on looking into Rosaline's eyes. Oops. The short Rosaline raised her head too high and was not tall, so her body lost balance and fell backwards directly. Puff. Looking at this stupid and cute pirated version of herself, Rosaline couldn't help laughing. Chapter 6. Yo tilde looks like you're having a lot of fun tilde. Knowing that Rosaline was here, Suran didn't stay in his laboratory for long. He came out with a small armed doll. It was the big duck version, but in Rosaline's opinion, this was the queen with two heads. This was almost a blasphemy to the winter gods. If Her Majesty knew that you made such a thing, she might be furious, right? The Ice Queen had done her a favor. It was a favor as heavy as a mountain. Facing the miniature version of herself made by Suran, Rosaline had no opinion, and even thought that the little guy was interesting, but if she saw this Q version of the Ice Queen, she would not be so polite. Don't worry, she's easy to talk to. I still have their group photo here. Suran took out his mobile phone and showed the lady the photo of the Ice Queen coming here 2 days ago and taking a group photo with the little duck. Looking at the photo, the smile on Her Majesty's face was not fake. This prevented her from getting angry. The plan to collect the heart of God is about to begin. We need a force that can resist Sky Island. The clown asked you and me to go to Mondstadt to obtain the heart of the Wind God. Obtaining the heart of the 7 gods is a long, planned plan of the Fates. It can even be said to be the most important part. If necessary, they can even abandon other preparations and fight for the heart of God with all their strength. You also want other people's corpses, a tilde so disgusting. Sue Rand's undisguised disgust. Rosalind also saw it clearly, but she had no choice. The heart of God is the remains of the third adventer after all. It also contains his power. If you want to resist the law of nature, it is not enough to rely on local power alone. The original elemental dragon has proved this, so they can only crave power from outside the sky, because this is the only way they can fight against Sky Island. You know nothing about the law of nature. Even if they have collected all the hearts of God, they are not 100% sure of defeating Sky Island. It is even possible to survive. After all, the heart of God is only a relic. No matter how powerful it is only the remnant of the third adventer, and the third adventer is a loser. The heart of God is not important to the other 7 gods. It will not even improve their power, but this is the only means of the Fatui. In addition, they can only rely on the Kanraya technology brought by the Harlequin, and the talents of Daughter and Sandone. After all, those two are the only 2 people in the Fatui who can conduct scientific research to strengthen the weapons of Solstice. But now there is one more, Sue Ran. But so far, he has not come up with anything that can improve Solstice's quality. You know nothing about me, Tilda, Sue Ran sighed, combing the hair of the little duck in his hand. If I am not interested, I can spend some time to improve Solstice's technology by thousands of years, even if there is no more inspiration, but it is still possible to make the winter solstice develop to the modern space-class civilization. Do you think I'm so easy to fool? Let the winter solstice technology improve by thousands of years. Are you kidding me? It has only been a few thousand years since the founding of Zhidong. If Su Ran is so powerful, does he need to be just a simple executive? Isn't he aiming to be a god? Tilda, foolish guy. Can a member of the Genius Club, especially a stupid person like you, understand? Sandone put down the book in his hand with a sneer on his face. My existence is the most direct proof of his powerful talent. She made an extremely narcissistic speech. It's really similar. Rosaline was also impressed by the narcissism of this Sandone. It's worthy of being made according to the original version. This narcissism, this arrogant personality, is almost exactly the same. I don't want to have a boring conversation with you. I will leave for Mende in 3 days. Are you going or not? As a lady with a much lower seat, Rosaline did not directly ask for Sue Ran's qualifications, so she just came to ask, if you go, we will go together. If you don't go, she will go alone. Anyway, the heart of God that needs to be obtained this time is not difficult. The cowardly wind god. Even if she is alone, she is not afraid. 3 days. But I am not very interested in Mondstadt. Forget it. It is better to go out for a walk. People here are so tightly covered every day. Compared with his experiment, the so-called heart of God is not worth mentioning, but he has not seen people for a long time. This time, it is also a good decision to go out and contact humans from other countries. After all, before crossing, Genshin Impact is also a game he likes. To him, seeing the characters in it. It is also a wish that could not be realized before. At this moment, his mobile phone sent a reminder again. Su Ran took the mobile phone and looked through the latest messages received, looking at the newly obtained emoticons. He was very satisfied. Since you agree, then the purpose of my coming here this time has also been achieved. Then there is no need for her to stay any longer. Rosalind glanced at the armed puppet around. If they knew you made these little gadgets, they would probably come to ask for an explanation. Imitating the original, even the personality is similar. It just looks cuter. It's okay. I don't think they will mind. After all, you don't have any objections. In Su Ran's cognition, only the lady has the worst temper. The other puppet with a bad temper is not interested in the outside world, but looking at her current appearance, it seems that she doesn't care, but likes these armed puppets. Then there is no need to worry about the others. Remember to leave in 3 days. Rosaline left without looking back. Rosaline Chan Tilda sent her off. Since she found someone coming, Rosaline Chan, who has been acting like a lady, got up and prepared to send the lady off. And outside the house there is another guest. She is troubled by the recognition system in front of her, and she has been troubled for a while. Recognition failed. Please show a sad expression that is about to cry for recognition. The recognition device on the door made another request. The girl outside the door tilted her head and thought for a while, and soon made the corresponding expression according to the prompt. Chapter 7. Rosaline saw a sad face the moment the door opened. Just face her. The distance between the two was less than half a meter. But the atmosphere was extremely awkward. Rosaline looked at Columbia's frozen expression and had to speak first. What a coincidence. Why did she see Columbia at this time? What did this guy come here for? Maybe he was interested in Su Ran. Because he was a man who had just joined the Fatui and squeezed the girl out of the top. 3. Facing new compatriots, he took the initiative to say hello because of curiosity. This seems to make sense. 2 Rosalines. Columbia tilted her head and looked at the Q version of Rosaline, who was trotting behind her and panting. The difference between long legs and short legs can be clearly shown when walking. Every step taken by the lady, Rosaline, as an armed doll, has to take 7 or 8 steps. There are not only 2 of me, there is another you in here. This miniature version of me was really seen by others. Rosaline still felt awkward. It was not she who made a fool of herself, but she felt a sense of empathy. After all, the little one was made based on her own template. Is that so? Columbia walked forward on her own and then picked up Rosaline. Then goodbye, Rosaline Tilda. As she said that, she walked into the room. Hey, don't be so presumptuous. Put me down. The armed doll held by Columbia couldn't break free from Columbia's arms, even if it was equipped with a combat system, but who made the person holding her the former third seat of the Fatui. No matter what, the girl also has the strength of a demon god, and she doesn't have the same power. After walking through the long corridor, Columbia also arrived in the hall where Su Ran was. Although curious about the sci-fi style buildings around, but in comparison, the man still interested the girl more. You are the second guest here today. Columbia came here. Su Ran was not surprised. Normally speaking, most people would get familiar with new colleagues, especially people like the girl who are full of curiosity. The second one. Columbia tilted her head. Didn't the doctor come to greet you early in the morning? Including Rosaline just now. I should be the third one, right? Is he counting wrong? Sorry, Tilda, I forgot to say it. Su Ran looked apologetic. Daughter and dogs are not allowed to enter. His laboratory is very important. How could he let in strangers and some time? Wasting trash. In his eyes, ordinary people are ordinary people. But daughter is trash in his eyes. After all, he is in same industry, even if he is not qualified to compete with him. But he will also compete for funding. Aren't you afraid that he will get angry? Columbia picked up the Q version of herself, who was sitting on the ground and chewing the chair leg, hugged the 2 armed dolls, and sat directly on the chair. It's okay. I'm actually quite happy if I can see his helpless and furious appearance. The girl at this moment was like a mother holding her child. Only one of the 2 looked like her own child. Why is she biting the chair? Columbia looked at the Q version of herself. The saliva on the chair leg was very conspicuous. Well, Ran didn't know how to explain it. You can't say that because you watched the Winter Fool play, you looked like you were chewing on the coffin board when you sang. So when I made the armed puppet, I added this setting directly, right? Children just grew teeth, and they like to chew something, isn't it normal? Columbia looked at Ran with a smile. Her intuition told her, maybe the truth is not that simple. So what are you hiding? Being stared at by an executive with a smile. Ordinary people might have sweated profusely, but who made this Ran, whether it's strength or status, he is above the girl. You look so beautiful when you smile. The girl did not refuse such praise, but the little girl in her arms also sang along, like a spring flower. So Columbia sat there quietly and listened to the little Columbia singing a whole song. Until dark, Columbia still had no intention of leaving. During this period, little Columbia became her jukebox. She could sing whatever song she wanted to hear. This made her happier than Columbia singing by herself. Aracino-chan, prepare an extra pair of bowls and chopsticks. Columbia will have dinner here tonight. The girl met a new miniature executive colleague. It was a pity that she hugged one in each hand. At this moment, there was no extra arm to hug this little Aracino. Seeing that Columbia did not do anything, Aracino-chan was relieved. She couldn't deal with such a guy. Before, on the snowy plain, under poor conditions, Ran naturally would not have any requirements for food. Even if the resources were sufficient, it was good enough for him to eat. But now that the conditions were available, it was impossible to just make do with it casually. Tonight, Columbia tasted the best meal she had ever had in her life. Recalling her life in Jidong before, she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. What kind of hard life did I have in the past? I felt the magnified version of my emotions. Little Columbia kindly gave her a handkerchief. I will live here from now on. The girl fell in love with this place just after her first visit. She even decided to live here. Ran was stunned and then made a helpless expression. Then I can only bear with it and sleep in the same bed with you, Columbia. Such a big house, is there only one bed? I heard that when it was built, a lot of money was asked from rich people, and Ran gave her a look. Let her experience it herself. This is his laboratory. How could he let outsiders live in? Those who can live in it are his family, right? Whether it is a wife or a girlfriend. Do they have to rest separately? Although he is a scientist, but he is not. Straight man, and his bed is very big. Columbia fell into silence. Although she is a virgin, she is not completely ignorant. She only wants to say one thing about this. I still don't want to die. Chapter 8. Although it was decided not to stay overnight here, but Columbia began to be curious about Ran's research. As far as she knew, the new second seat seemed to be a scientific research talent like the doctor and the puppet. He was an extremely precious talent. Such talents were extremely valuable among the Fatui, because their research could arm the Fatui. At this moment, Ran was bugging the floating cannon that he would take away soon. This too advanced technology. Even if Dottle came, he would be confused, not to mention Columbia. She stared blankly at Ran, bugging the weapon. She was very curious. Is this a weapon? Of course. It's still a very powerful weapon. The floating cannon is actually an all-round combat unit. It can be sniped. It can also be bombed. In this way, even if he can't become Ultraman, he can also emit light. This technology is too advanced for the Teyvat people, but he didn't plan to use it for everyone. In fact, he only planned to equip himself. Even if it's a demon god facing my floating gun, it can only wait for death. That's because the time for research and manufacturing was too short. So he didn't make much improvement in power, only made a lot of improvements in portability. Otherwise, let alone a demon god, bombing the entire planet is no problem. After all, his talent allows him to do that. and he can also provide enough energy. So awesome. Columbia clapped his hands expressionlessly. Just joined the Fatui less than a week ago and created a weapon that can kill the demon god. She, Columbia, is a little naive, but not stupid. Even the doctor can't say such big words. You are a newcomer, and you dare to say that. Then why don't you say that you can fight against the law alone? Sue ran. If you ask, I will admit it. Columbia, I am not lying, Tilda. As Sue Ran's mind moved, a floating gun received the signal and instantly floated up. This thing is also controlled by brain waves, and pointed the muzzle at Columbia, who was clapping her hands. Obviously, no attack was launched, but it was just such a simple aim, but it brought her a great sense of crisis. Miss Columbia, ignorance is terrible, as if you don't know what you are facing now. Sue Ran stared at the girl in front of him with a smile. If it was Dottle who questioned here, then he would definitely let him experience what a floating gun bombardment is first. Anyway, he has so many slices, it doesn't matter if one more dies. If all die, there is no need to give funds, but who made Columbia the one questioning now? The girl doesn't have so many slices. If she dies, she will really be gone. Sue Ran will not kill a girl who feels good to him. Ignorance itself is a very dangerous thing, because it can easily make you make wrong judgments, just like you are questioning my invention at this moment. He looked around. Sue Ran still couldn't make up his mind to show Columbia the weapons he had just made in his laboratory. After all, he couldn't tear down his house just to show off in front of a beautiful girl. Elbow. Let's go outside the city. I'll show you what the power of technology is. He took Columbia's little hand and flew directly outside the winter city. On the way, he couldn't help but pinch Columbia's delicate little hand a little more. It can only be said that she is worthy of being a fairy clan. This little hand is much more delicate than those little sisters he knew before crossing. It was the first time that Columbia was held by the hand by a member of the opposite S*X. She was still in shock for a while, before she could be shocked for long. The two had already arrived at the open space outside the city. There are no people around here, so this is it. After finding an open space, Sue Ran was ready to let Columbia open his eyes. Columbia glanced at the city wall behind him. Some regrets that the tone just now seemed too perfunctory. Is it really necessary to experiment so close to the main city? Don't worry, it won't hurt them. The charm of the floating gun is not as great as that of the Gundam, but it is also one of the parts of the Gundam. It's time to let the backward tave at people see the true power of technology. Snap, as Sue Ran snapped his fingers. The 8 floating guns that were originally hovering around him instantly aimed at a piece of open space in front of him. 8 floating guns fired together, accompanied by a deafening sound. A sun appeared outside the city of Zhidong. It even illuminated a small part of the city. However, this terrible sound woke up most of the residents of Zhidong who had fallen asleep peacefully. Those who didn't know thought that justice had come to their door. What happened? Dedalia, who was practicing alone, noticed the movement outside the city. This power, could it be a demon? He was extremely shocked. How could a demon wander around the main city of Zhidong? Didn't he know that Her Majesty the Queen was in the palace? With full vigilance, he instantly condensed 2 water blades with his hands and ran to the place where the movement occurred. Other executives also noticed this scene, and a large group of Fatui immediately stopped what they were doing. They quickly rushed out of the city. The explosion occurred not far outside the main city. They couldn't just ignore it. If it was an enemy attack, if they were a step late, it could cause huge losses. Fatui is notorious outside, but their reputation in winter is completely different. They are the heroes of winter. They should protect the people of the Ice Queen, and at this moment in the snowy field outside the city, Columbia had already widened her eyes. She stared blankly at the scene in front of her. At first, Suran said that he would kill the demon god in this way. She didn't believe it, as a fairy clan, and he has the power of the demon god. Columbia knows very well how difficult it is to deal with the demon god, unless the demon god is willing. Otherwise, humans do not have the power to kill the demon god, and Suran has only joined the Fatui for less than a week. He claimed that he had created a weapon that could kill the demon god during this period. Of course, she couldn't believe it. But the scene in front of her, she had to believe it. A big pit with a diameter of about 500 meters and a maximum depth of 100 meters. This is no less than the full force of some powerful demon gods. It seems that there are still many areas that can be improved, but overall, it is satisfactory. The first experiment was able to achieve such an effect. His work was still very successful, but it caused too much noise. It attracted a lot of people. The Queen of Ice may have been prepared, so she didn't come to investigate. And the first to arrive here were naturally strong people like executives. Suran turned and looked behind, the first person to arrive. Good evening, Tilda. Good evening. Chapter 9. When the Ice Queen announced that the Fatui would have a new executive. Elicino's thoughts were not that complicated. As long as her hearth house was not harmed, she didn't care whether there were new members. When she knew that Suran was a scientific researcher like the doctor, she became alert, because Doddle's experiments required experimental subjects. When he once tried to get his hands on the children of Hearth House, Elicino had the intention to kill Doddle. But the problem was that the doctor had too many slices, and the Ice Queen also needed his power. In addition, the difference in power between the two was not small, so that Elicino could not get rid of this dangerous person. Because of this, she didn't like people who were obsessed with dangerous research. The puppet was an exception, because Sandone only focused on those machines, but she didn't know what kind of person Suran was. Is he a dangerous researcher in the field of life, or one of those researchers who only cares about machines? Whether it would be a threat to her children determined how Elicino treated Suran, but she didn't expect that the two would meet again at this moment. Looking at the 8 floating guns beside Suran, she took a small step back. Did you make all this, Mr. Genius? The big pit in front made Elicino swallow. I'm doing data analysis for the new invention. Overall, it's pretty good. Not bad. Even the Ice Queen wouldn't feel good with this level of destructive power, right? The ability of this newcomer is really terrifying. It's a good thing that Mr. Genius has a new invention, but can't he choose a better time and a better place to experiment? If it was during the day, then she wouldn't have to rush over so hurriedly. It's the middle of the night. I thought it was an enemy attack. Is there any rule for the winter, such as a curfew? Suran touched his chin. If there is, then the executive should also have privileges, right? If he doesn't even have this privilege, then he is a shitty executive. Go directly to Liu. That's not the case, but it's already this time. The children are all asleep, but because of the noise you made, they were all woken up. Elicino was somewhat speechless. Some of the children in the hearth house are even toddlers. This noise made it difficult for the caregivers who had finally coaxed the children to sleep. The hearth house in Jidong is very noisy now. It disturbed the sleeping children. Suran bit his nails, feeling a little embarrassed. In this case, it was indeed his fault first. Yeah, I'll bring some gifts tomorrow and apologize to those children. Elicino's importance to the hearth house. He was still clear. Although he was called a father, In private, he was gentler than some real parents. Even if it was a child who betrayed the hearth house, Alicino never chose to kill him. At most, he would just erase their memories. Su-ran would naturally not take the initiative to touch her reverse scale. Then I will thank Mr. Genius on behalf of the children first, whether it was true or false. At least so far, Su-ran has not shown any interest in the children of the hearth house. This is a good thing for Alicino. You don't have to worry about thieves stealing, you have to worry about thieves thinking about it. If Su-ran is really not interested, it would be a good thing. After all, Su-ran directly occupied the seat of daughter. She is definitely stronger in terms of strength. If it comes to some critical moments, then even with her protection, Hearth House cannot guarantee the safety of the children. Everyone, what happened? The young master also came to the scene quickly. There were also bursts of footsteps not far away. The speed of the Fatui was still very fast. It's just a small experiment, not a big deal. Not a big deal. Tartaglia looked at the huge pit behind Su-ran. There seemed to be many traces of burning in it. Even he felt a heat wave. Is this really a small experiment? Why is it carried out outside the Winter City? Shouldn't it be found a farther place? Mr. Su-ran, what have you made again, and it is so powerful? Here, Tilda. 8 floating guns instantly surrounded Tartaglia. The muzzles were also aimed at him. Alicino, on the side, subconsciously opened up a distance with Tartaglia. That big hole is the best proof. The power of this thing is no less than the full force of some demon gods. Hey, 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 it's not good to use such a terrible thing on your colleagues, right? Tartaglia was tense at the moment. If the cannon really opened fire, then he would probably be in great danger, and even his whole body would not be left. Isn't this just a greeting to you, Tilda? Su-ran waved his hand, and the 8 floating cannons quickly retracted and hovered beside him. I heard that martial arts geeks like to make friends through fighting. I thought you would like me to greet you with weapons. Tartaglia didn't know how to refute for a while. It's true, for a battle fanatic like him. Fighting is indeed the best way to say hello. At least it's like those blades, right? Even if it's a long, handled weapon, he can accept it. What kind of weapon is this? Well, compared to this method, I still prefer to fight with fists and feet. If Mr. Su-ran really thinks I am qualified to fight you, please use some blades. Didaria is eager to fight with the strong, but he also knows the gap between him and the second seat. Especially, this second seat used the simplest way to kill the former second seat. Obviously, Su-ran's power is very strong. Even if he is given the opportunity to challenge, he has no chance of winning, but, fighting, cool. He will never refuse the opportunity to fight with the strong. Executive officer, are you all right? The soldiers of the Fatui came over in scattered pieces. It's okay, you can go back, this is just a misunderstanding. Didaria motioned them to leave. He waited until the soldiers left before he asked again. I can understand the test product, but do you plan to hold hands like this forever? He pointed to the 2 hands between Su-ran and Columbia that were still tightly held. Reading in Mid-Autumn Festival, Chapter 10, Columbia looked down, as expected, from the time they came from the city to the outside of the city just now. The 2 of them have never let go of each other's hands. Alicino had already noticed it, but she was more rational than Tartaglia. She didn't mention this matter, although they were both executives of the Fatui, but the Ice Queen never allowed executives to not fall in love. Perhaps she thought that those who could become executives, perhaps they didn't need a partner, but even if they did, it wouldn't be a big deal. As long as it didn't involve the Fatui's plan, no one would care about such things, but Columbia is a special case. Because she is not human, and she can't fall in love with humans, why not? Sue Ran asked in return. Holding a girl's hand, she didn't refuse. Both of them are still single. In this case, how could Tartaglia object? They are really a perfect match. Sue Ran has talent and Columbia is beautiful. Is it still the turn of the monster to object? Is that so? I was too nosy. Tartaglia was very surprised. His eyes almost popped out when he looked at the two of them. He took down the most beautiful flower among the executives so quickly. He is worthy of being the man who snatched the doctor's seat just after joining the Fatui. He is really awesome. Tartaglia secretly gave him a thumbs up in his heart. Such a great achievement is really admirable. Being able to get together with a woman like Columbia, it is really not something that ordinary people can do. As the person involved, Columbia pursed her lips. She was just worrying about how to explain it. Unexpectedly, Sue Ran spoke again. Almost shocked Arlecino and Tartaglia's jaws. It's too late now. Arlecino is right. The children should go to bed. Let's go back too. Little Columbia is still waiting for me to coax her to sleep. Little Columbia. Tartaglia nodded first. Then he was stunned. He looked at Sue Ran speechlessly. The girl should be not young anymore, right? Or are you also an old monster? What are you thinking about? I'm not talking about this Columbia next to me, but the little Columbia in my workshop. She looks exactly like her mother Tilda. Sue Ran raised his eyebrows at Tartaglia. He looked like he knew everything. This completely misled the youngest executive. It's only been a few days. And she even has a child. Could it be that I have overslept these days? One sleep lasted for a year. Alicino also looked at Sue Ran with suspicion. Even if the fairy is so special, it's impossible for a newborn to be born in a few days, right? If you have time, you can also come to my workshop. Little Columbia and the others also welcome you uncles and aunts to visit. Sue Ran also invited the two. Except for the doctor and the scattered soldiers, he was quite kind to other executives. More than one. Don't even mention Tartaglia at this moment. Even Arlecino was confused at this moment. There are 5 tilde. He gave Arlecino a meaningful look. Let her experience it herself. Tartaglia and she stood there, watching Sue Ran pulling Columbia back to the city. From this point of view, you are not the only executive with a child in the future. Feeling the strange atmosphere around him, Tartaglia made a cold joke to Alicino. Unfortunately, the latter did not laugh. I didn't realize that you are also a fun person. Walking on the way back to the workshop, Sue Ran also had a slightly different view of the girl around him. I just think it's fun. Columbia did not deny that she has the attributes of a fun person. Just after Sue Ran mentioned the child, she recalled the 5 little guys in Sue Ran's workshop, one herself, one Rosalind, one Sandone, one Alicino, and one queen. Rosalind and Her Majesty, the queen, already know about their existence. Now Sandone and Alicino don't know yet. If you can attract their attention, it seems not bad. At least Sandone, the seldom going out girl, should come out. It's been a long time since I saw Sandone outside. Columbia still misses her. It would be nice if she could leave that cold workshop. Look at Sue Ran. They are obviously the same type of people, but he can communicate with outsiders, but Sandone is a poor child. She only stays with her inventions. Especially her inventions are not cute at all. They are not as good as those children created by Sue Ran. So just now, she also acquiesced to the existence of the child, and she smiled, making it impossible to see any flaws. So the servants and the young master believed it quickly. I don't know how Arlecchino will react when he sees me like that. Su-ran touched his chin. He was looking forward to seeing that scene. Unlike those children in the hearth house, Arlecchino-chan is his work. He is not only her master, he is also her father. In this case, if the prototype Arlecchino treats her as a child, then what identity should it be? Mother, this is possible after all. She is not the child of the hearth house, and the title of mother is different from the previous servant. But if you think about it carefully, it seems unlikely. Arlecchino as an armed doll. Although she admits that Su-ran is her master and her father, she may not admit that Arlecchino as the prototype is qualified to be her mother. Because she is also strong, Arlecchino should be surprised to have a child who looks so much like her. As an optimistic girl, she doesn't like to think about the bad side. The direction they walked was where Su-ran's workshop was, as the destination got closer and closer. Columbia's pace was also getting slower and slower. Is there really only one bed in your workshop? Although she is not a human, she also has a sense of shame. Don't you want to live there? I'm leaving Zhidong in 3 days. Isn't one bed enough for you? Besides, I'm a handsome guy, so I don't mind. Chapter 11. Rosaline, have you heard? The genius and the girl have a child. Just when the lady was about to go to Mondstadt, Arlecchino came to see her off. Of course, she also wanted to see the reactions of other executives. It was just a similar rumor. The lady had heard it many times. It's a pity that those armed puppets never leave Su-ran's workshop. And his workshop is not open to everyone, although it's not as bad as daughter's laboratory. But under normal circumstances, no one has the courage to enter the creative workshop of the second seat. Right. That night 3 days ago, the big pit outside the city still left a lot of fear. What's wrong? You are gossiping too. Arlecchino's look made Rosaline very interested. The fourth, no, is the fifth seat so gossipy now? I'm just a little curious after all, the identity of the girl. The executives of the Fatui have their own purposes, but they are still colleagues after all. Whether it is the genius or the girl, neither of them is the kind of person that everyone hates like the doctor. If they are really together, then it is okay for her to offer her blessing. If you are curious, you can go to the second seat's workshop and take a look. You will definitely be surprised there. At least in Rosaline's opinion, Arlecchino is a person who is more maternal than herself. The servants are all sincere in their love for the children in the hearth house. Rather than being false, then seeing a smaller version of herself, maybe she will also be maternal. Have you been there? Her words quickly attracted Arlecchino's attention. This tone is definitely that she has really been to Su-ran's workshop. Doesn't the lady hate that kind of place the most? It is called a workshop, but it is actually a laboratory. Don't look at me with that look. The genius will go to mend with me to get the heart of God. I have naturally visited his workshop. Compared with the other two, it is really good there. The doctor's laboratory is full of blood, wailing, and corpses. The puppet's workshop only has unknown instruments and unknown inventions. And the genius's laboratory is the most special in her opinion. At least it is the cleanest and simplest. It is precisely because of this that Rosaline's perception of the genius is not so bad, plus the existence of those little cuties. She even wants to go there more times, but there is not so much time for the time being. I don't know if he will take them with him when he goes to Mend to collect the heart of God. Seeing this, Arlecchino didn't ask much. It can make the lady less disgusted. Then the environment of Su Ran's workshop is worthy of recognition. The genius is very mysterious and powerful. Even the doctor is not his opponent, but he is proud of his talent. He is a dangerous person. Being able to defeat the captain, Alicino concluded that the genius is the strongest among the executives. Plus the behavior of despising the doctor's talent. This all tells that he is a more powerful doctor. Researchers are sometimes very dangerous. On Su Ran, whether it is strength or talent, he may be ahead of other executives. Naturally, he is a more dangerous existence. But fortunately, he is not as cruel as the doctor, and the children like him. 2 days ago, Su Ran really came to apologize with gifts, as he said that night. Arlecchino changed his opinion of him a lot. Compared to the doctor who treated those orphans as excellent experimental subjects, the puppet does not care about the outside world. A genius who can take the initiative to come to the door to communicate with the children. In her heart, it is still a plus. Rosaline cast a strange look at her. "What's the matter?" Facing this look, she asked, "You seem to care about the second seat." Arlecchino naturally answered the lady's curiosity. Heartland House is a shelter for orphans, but some children will inevitably be affected by some diseases, especially those from Zumi. The doctor has also studied the magic scale disease, but I don't believe him. If the genius can cure it, they may be able to recover, even though the current hearth house is managed by Alicino. But some internal competition is inevitable, because the Fatui have never been a charity organization. No matter how kind she is, those sick children still find it difficult to compete with those healthy children. The final outcome is elimination, but if someone can cure them, that is a gift of fairness. Hearth House can not only harvest a group of healthy children, it can also harvest their loyalty and gratitude. Compared to the doctor who has been with you for many years, you trust the new genius more. Even Rosaline had to sigh. This servant is really too kind when treating the children of Hearth House. Compared with the previous mother, this guy is simply a perfect father. It is no wonder that the feints from the Hearth House are much better than the feints soldiers selected from the people. I don't think that a person who can bring gifts to children and play with them is a heinous B**********. As soon as the voice fell, Alicino felt her shoulders sink. She turned her head slightly and saw Su Ran's head against her shoulder. It's so gratifying. So I am such an image in Alicino's eyes. I am so touched Tilda. At this moment, Alicino felt her face darken. Praise the merits of that person to others behind their backs, but it was discovered by the person concerned. This feeling also made her feel very embarrassed. Dear Alicino, you might as well praise me more. Even I will be very happy. Don't call me so intimately. We are just colleagues. Su Ran's overly familiarity made Alicino a little overwhelmed. This reminded her of her former friend. She reached out and pushed the head against her shoulder away. What a shy girl. I can clearly feel that you are looking forward to my gift, just like those kids. Although the hand that pushed her head away was very dark, Su Ran did not dislike it. Apart from the color, that hand was not much different from other girls' hands. Recharge now. Event time. September 15 to September 17, Chapter 12. It's really too much. If you show a little kindness, you might be able to win my favor and get more things from me to treat those sick children. He has also been to the Hearth House. The children there are indeed much better than those recruited from the winter solstice people. After all, the children who enter the Hearth House have nothing except that home. The only family affection they have is also gained from the Hearth House. Most children find it difficult to betray their home, but fewer betrayers do not mean fewer eliminated. Even because of Alicino, the actions of the Hearth House in recent years seem to be full of human touch. But there will still be eliminated. It is difficult for those sick children to survive in such an environment. As the head of the family, Alicino will naturally consider all the children. She will not favor one person too much, nor will she neglect one person. Because of this, she also cares about the health of the children. It's just that the Hearth House never lacks medical resources, but what it lacks is always the way to treat some special diseases. These diseases cannot be treated by ordinary doctors. The doctor may have a way, but Alicino does not believe him. As for Su Ran, although it is impossible to trust him completely, but at least he is much more reliable than the doctor. If just a little kindness can gain the friendship of Mr. Genius, then you can use my shoulder as long as you want. Alicino also reacted. Genius is much easier to get along with than she thought. She still overreacted a little. No need, Tilda, I can see that Alekin still doesn't trust me very much. Obviously, he has such a high evaluation of me, but he dare not praise me in person. He is a very shy person. Next time, if you have a chance, you can just praise me directly. Even the lady next to him was covering her mouth and laughing. Obviously, Su Ran is another special existence within the Fatui executive. He can directly liven up the atmosphere here. Obviously, everyone has no feelings, just ordinary colleagues. If you want, I can praise you now. Alicino could also see that this was a person who might be more enthusiastic and cheerful than Crevi. This is not easy. Now I am an airdropped executive, and I haven't done anything big. I have to go out and make some name for myself before you can praise me. Su Ran stared at her with a smile. This look was different from other executives. Alicino only saw joy in it, killing the doctor's slice and directly creating a 500-meter hole outside the city of Solstice. Aren't these big things? How many executives would do such a thing, no matter whether they have the strength to do it? The impact alone is not small. The hole is basically almost against the wall of Solstice. Killing an incompetent waste, blowing a hole outside the city, and waking up a lot of people, I think these are all negative news, aren't they? You know it too. Alicino wanted to say it, but he held back, for the children. Su Ran saw what she was thinking. Alicino, you don't want to see those children suffering from injuries and illness continue to suffer, right? Close your eyes and organize your thoughts. He changed his expression and stretched out his right hand to Alicino. It was like a priest stretching out his hand to a little boy. Yes, do you have any conditions? The child of the Hearth House is her Achilles' heel. At some point, Alicino could even betray the Queen of Winter for this. She is an executive officer in a high position, but she also has such a tender side. This made Su Ran feel a huge contrast. But because of this, he still liked Alicino very much. Don't you read some light novels imported from Inazuma? Your cold look makes it difficult for me to continue. This look, as if she is not worried about paying any price. It made him feel very indifferent. I will go and see. Alicino still didn't understand his idea after all. But since the hints have come out, she will naturally try to understand some of the light novels imported from Inazuma. Perhaps only by reading those things can she have some common topics with this genius. Okay, I will test you when I go to Fontaine. In other words, it is not clear what her expression will be after reading these contents. Will she look at me with the eyes that look like a scumbag? It always feels quite exciting. He was looking forward to it. Even though he responded, Alicino still wanted to know more about the person in front of him. As an adventurer, everything about him was blank in this land, so he couldn't get any information from other places. So she chose the simplest way. Genius, you and I are both executives of the Fatui. There may be a lot of cooperation in the future, but I still want to know why you decided to be loyal to Her Majesty, the Queen. Ask directly. There is no more direct and simple way than this. Each executive has different purposes for joining the Fatui, but they all have requirements. So what about the genius? Because I give funds, I have such terrible abilities. It's impossible for me to develop only by pulling trees. The rich approve funds very quickly. When I asked for funds to build a workshop, the cost was several times more, and he didn't hesitate at all. Su Ran showed a very speechless expression. If you become an executive, you can get a lot of resources directly. Isn't this much easier than him collecting them slowly? Now he can have countless resources without doing anything. Isn't that good? Just this. Just because he can provide enough funds. Such loyalty is too simple. Alicino does not believe such a simple reason. No other ideals, no other purpose. Just because he can provide enough funds. But what if one day others can also give you funds? Rosaline suddenly realized. Genius's position does not seem to be very firm, because of maintaining the relationship between him and the Fatui. It's just as simple as Mora. It depends on whether that person can provide other resources I need. Alicino became interested. What if it's possible? I will take Columbia away with me. If it works, take the Ice Queen with me. Su Ran doesn't care that this is the headquarters of the Fatui. It doesn't matter if someone reports it. If the Ice Queen hears it, she will probably have to increase her support for him. Chapter 13. Sure enough, those who can become executives are not pure and kind. Genius is the most dangerous among all executives. Because his position is the most unstable, others betray Jidong. Maybe they would worry about many things. Hunting, divine punishment, or the safety of their families. But he only needs to provide more benefits. Then he can betray without hesitation. In some cases, he is even more dangerous than the doctor. Watching Su Ran and Rosaline leave, Alicino fell into deep thought. If the genius only needs the simplest funds to stand on the same side with them, that is enough to show that his ambition is huge, because the Fatui can't help him with his real purpose except for Mora. But what is his real purpose? Interesting man, you have successfully attracted my attention. It's a pity that Alicino didn't take the Dragon King script. But there is a Dragon King in her hometown. Since Su Ran said that he would go to Fontaine for the assessment in the future, then she had to make some preparations. It's really strange. As an adventurer, he is not from Teyvat, and he has been in winter all the time. How can he know the literature of Inazuma? With doubts, Alicino returned to the Hearth House. Most of Inazuma's light novels are liked by young people. The children of the Hearth House may also be interested in this, and they may get the answer. In the headquarters of the Knights of Favonius in Mondstadt, a blonde female knight is looking at a letter in her hand with a sad face, and next to her is a purple witch with a lazy look. Alas! Kin, who accepted the identity of the acting leader, is exhausted at this moment. Not long ago, the East Wind Dragon Tevelin, one of the 4 Wind Guardians, awakened. This should be a good thing for Mondstadt, because it is the follower of the wind god Barbados, but unfortunately, since the follower of the wind god woke up, he fell into madness. From time to time, they launched attacks on Mondstadt. They have caused many disasters. They were even given the title of Wind Dragon. However, there was still no sign of the wind god Barbados appearing. The knights did not have the power to stop Teverin. They could only let Mondstadt experience dragon disasters again and again. However, the most troublesome thing at the moment was not just that. After Zhidong learned the news, he announced that he would send 2 diplomats to provide Mondstadt with necessary protection. To say it was protection was actually to find a way to station troops in Mondstadt during this period. In order to gain more control over Mondstadt, this was something that anyone with a discerning eye could see. But they couldn't refuse, because the Fatui really brought supplies. They could say no to the Fatui's garrison. But for the supplies that supported Mondstadt, Jean couldn't say no. That was the supplies that Mondstadt needed most now. Without this supply, it would take a long time for Mondstadt to recover. This was an open conspiracy. But she had to jump in anyway, and her best friend Lisa, the librarian of the Mondstadt Knights, naturally knew Jean's troubles and entanglements. She had no choice, because the Knights of Favonius might say no, but the residents of Mondstadt could not say that. Because of the dragon disaster, their trade route with Yu had long been cut off. They could not survive for too long just by relying on the remaining food. So the 2 people in the office at this moment, in fact, they had already made the final decision. They just didn't say it out loud. I heard that the 2 executives who came this time are called Lady and Genius. Do you have any clues, Lisa? Kin looked at her best friend. The Grand Master took most of the Knights of Favonius on an expedition. Mondstadt is now in the void period. If the Fatui found an opportunity, I'm afraid that the Grand Master will not be able to expel them when he returns in the future. I guess that Lady must be a woman, and that Genius must be a smart person. Lisa blinked at Kin. While not making the latter laugh, she also received a white eye from the other party. This is not funny, Genius. The executive officer who just joined the Fatui not long ago, I heard that he killed the former second seat. Daughter has many slices. But this is not a well-known thing. Therefore, in the eyes of most people, the original second seat is dead. As for why the seats of other executives were downgraded, they don't know. But what is certain is that a ruthless character has appeared among the executives, and this ruthless character will soon arrive in Mend. This also makes Kin extremely nervous at the moment. What will be the consequences if such a terrible character appears in Mend? Isn't this a good thing? I heard that the former second seat is a bad guy who has done many evil things. Compared with Kin's sorrow, Lisa is more optimistic. Everyone can see that the Fatui's plan is very big. Otherwise, there will not be all external executives in Teyvat. Mind is in a void. If only executives are needed, there is no need to send a second seat, let alone 2 executives. However, 2 have been sent now, and one of them is the second, ranked executive officer. Should we really say that they really value Mend? In that case, why not think about the bright side? Maybe the second, ranked officer is just passing by. Maybe Lisa can really make her words come true. Rosaline, I want to see the fox. Following the lady slowly to Mend, Sue-Ran felt bored. Fox? What fox? There are no foxes in Mend. The lady frowned. There are snow foxes in winter, but Mend does not have these animals. There are no in Mend, but there are in Inazuma. I heard there is a pink-haired fox there. I want to go and see it. Sue-Ran looked at the snow-capped mountains not far away. If I guessed correctly, walking back in the direction of the Dragon Ridge Snow Mountain and crossing the ocean, It should be Inazuma. You are going to skip work for the first mission. As an executive, can't you set an example for everyone? The lady looked at Sue Ran with gritted teeth. Didn't you agree to go to Mondstadt with me? What's so fun about the novice village, the bard with a green hat and green cape who begs for drinks in the tavern all day is the god of wind? Just find a chance to take out his heart. I want to see the pink fox. Sue Ran waved his hand indifferently. Isn't Wendy full of guilt towards the lady? Then even if she went too far, as long as she didn't hurt the people of Mondstadt, he could tolerate it. Chapter 14. Although Mend has Eula, Jean, Lisa, Noel, and others. But compared to these, he still wants to see Ye Goddess, General Raiden, and Kamisato Ayaka first. He is still very curious about the famous actress Raiden May. Although I don't know if General Raiden is 100% similar to May. But it's not bad to see what she looks like. He even wants to see how General Raiden works. It's not difficult to make a doll. But Tave has this technology. It's still quite novel to him. As for the heart of God, it has never been his goal. Anyway, the Fatui will still collect it. Goodbye, Inazuma Tilda. Sue Ran blinked at the lady. Before she was about to get angry, he disappeared without a trace. Damn B ***** D. Just watched him leave. Rosaline stamped her feet in anger. The Fatui accompanying him didn't dare to speak. I dare not even say anything to comfort the lady, because this executive with a bad personality, it is very likely that he will take his anger out on them. The group can only continue on their way as if nothing happened. Without you, I can still get the heart of God. Although Sue ran away. But it is not useless. Rosaline at least knows what the true body of the god of wind looks like. There is no need to use some tricks to catch him. A thunder firefly warlock closest to her suggested to the lady, Madame, since the genius has left directly, do we need to report to the clown? The clown commands all executives. He is also the leader of all executives. As an executive, the genius directly deviates from this mission. In fact, it is a serious dereliction of duty. He should be punished. You know, even the former second doctor will seriously carry out the task when he gets the clown's task. Report? What to report? Do you think Piero's head is harder than Capitano's helmet? Rosalind glared at the lightning warlock. Even if he reported it, what would happen? How else could he deal with it? In the end, it would still end in nothing. Even with Capitano's fighting power, he would have no chance of fighting back when facing Sue Ran. How much better could Piero be? He was called the second seat, but in fact, he was simply an existence outside the executive system. Giving him the title of executive officer was not only to get his help. More importantly, it was to label him. To avoid being snatched away by other countries, she had no doubt that even the Queen of Ice could not force Sue Ran to do anything. Speed up, we need to get to Min City faster. The heart of God of the Wind Barbados, I must get it. Rosalind was full of anger. As long as she transferred her anger to the wind god Barbados, she had no way to deal with the second seat. But a weak god who has lost his power and never collected faith, could she not defeat him? A very fast stream of light quickly passed through Inazuma's thunderstorm. Such a blatant act. It directly alarmed the Thunder General who was meditating in the castle tower. She quickly picked up the Naginata. She went to stop the uninvited guest who broke into Inazuma. Purple lightning and white light collided over Inazuma. The loud noise instantly startled the people on the ground. The people on the ground looked up at the sky. You are so bold to break into my Inazuma without permission. Su-ran looked at the existence that stopped him. General Raiden, who was covered in purple lightning. His expression was serious and his eyes were fierce. It didn't match his impression of a silly face at all. Maybe it was because the person in front of him was a general. Not a shadow, right? I can be bolder, General. Do you want to try? Su-ran's tone was light. His eyes kept wandering around General Raiden. Lecture. General Raiden didn't say much. He just raised his naginata and chopped at him. It just so happens that this is my first real battle, and I also want to see how powerful the demon god of Teyvat is. Despite strengthening his body, he also gained the power of the commander, but he didn't know how strong he could be. The intelligent envoy was not specialized in fighting, but this also gave him more room for error. After all, if the envoy was very destructive, then the mere Thunder General was not enough. Gathering up similar strength, Su-ran swung his naginata at the Thunder General and slapped him with his palm. Second collision, the purple lightning was instantly blown away. After being blown away for thousands of meters, it fell directly into the sea. Su-ran looked at the Thunder General, who sank into the sea with a blank face. He thought that he didn't use much strength in this palm. Could this Thunder General come here to make trouble? He was an intelligent envoy. His martial arts were not outstanding. He only used less than 10% of his strength in that blow just now. It's not enough to blow a demon god so far, right? Are all demon gods so fragile? Maybe she's going to transform. Looking at the sea surface that had been silent for a long time, Su-ran's face became a little solemn. In the game, after killing the boss, it often doesn't end there. Maybe there is a second stage. Doesn't General Raiden also have a posture of Hujin Mitake Ming, Shenaming? Another 10 minutes passed calmly. Su-ran realized the seriousness of the matter. I won't kill her with one palm, will I? He quickly dived into the sea. He began to look for General Raiden's body. At this moment, Inazuma had already fallen into panic. That purple thunder can be seen as their god at a glance. After all, that pressure, they are very familiar with it. I thought it was the general who took action to resist the outsiders who broke into Inazuma. But in the end, it seems that General Raiden also fell into the sea. And this scene happened to be the picture that everyone could see when they looked up. So no one can predict how big a storm Inazuma will stir up at this moment. Because at this moment, even the Fox Fairy Priest in Narukami Taisha can't laugh at this moment. General Shi, just lost like this. Chapter 15. The Shogunate army quickly dispatched soldiers. The patrol intensity in Inazuma Castle also increased sharply. The three magistrates no longer cared about the past disputes. They began to work together to appease the people of Inazuma. Everything they had was given by General Raiden. But now General Raiden was in trouble. They were more panicked than anyone else. In Inazuma Castle, on the street leading to the castle tower. At this time, it had already been strictly controlled by the army of the Tenryou magistrate, and the castle tower was already empty at this moment. The pink-haired Foxy Kamiko looked at the towering building. Lord the priest. She was in a heavy mood. She tried to go to the castle tower to meet the uninvited guest, but she was stopped by someone. Oh, it's the little girl from the Kamisato family. The person who stopped Yi Kamiko was the younger sister of the current magistrate of the Kamisato family, Ayaka Kamisato. The lady of the big family who was worried about Inazuma and tried to resist the eye-hunting order also came to Inazuma Castle at this time. Master Palace Master, are you going to the castle tower? Kamisato Ayaka looked panicked, the scene where General Raiden was knocked down. She did not see it with her own eyes, but at this moment Inazuma Castle was already in a state of heavy alert. This also made her have to believe that the general had been defeated. Yes, Tilda, go to the castle tower. The guy who knocked down the god is in the castle tower now. The thunderstorm around Inazuma had long disappeared. In theory, this should be a good thing, but Ye Goddess was even more afraid, because the thunderstorm was maintained, but it was the will and power of the gods. This kind of thing only required the thunder god to move a little power, and only needed a little will to maintain it. At this moment, it had disappeared without a trace. Ye Goddess began to fear. She was worried that her god might have fallen. The existence that defeated the gods. At this moment, he was staying in the castle tower, before he met that person. No one knew what the future of Inazuma would be like. Why would such an existence suddenly appear now that the demon god war has long ended? Master, is the situation not optimistic? Kamisato Ayaka had never seen the appearance of Yi Kamiko at this moment, even though they did not meet often. But the Yi Kamiko, who always liked to play with people's hearts, seemed to have disappeared at this moment. She actually saw fear and confusion in the eyes of this second person of Inazuma, whom she had never seen through. Optimistic, little Ayaka, what do you think of the power of General Raiden? Yi Kamiko's bitter smile. Kamisato Ayaka's heart tightened even more. The power of General, the best in the world, sorry. Kamisato Ayaka couldn't say such words at this moment, because the invincible General Raiden in the hearts of Inazuma people. It seemed that he was defeated not long ago. No one could see what happened exactly, but everyone knew. General Lei Dian was defeated very easily. The battle did not last long. Everyone saw the purple lightning falling into the sea. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Come with me into the castle tower, and we will meet the strange god together. The one who can defeat the demon god can never be a human. That is definitely a god. It is even possible that it is a god from Sky Island. She walked towards the castle tower with heavy steps. I understand. Kamisato Ayaka followed the footsteps of Yi God, whether for the sake of the people of Inashi or for the general. She should also go to the castle tower to find out. Outside the castle tower, it has long been surrounded by soldiers of the Tenryou. Everyone knows the person who shot down the god is inside. However, no one has the courage to enter. Kyujosara looked at the closed door of the castle tower. Her heart was as painful as being cut by 1,000 knives. If she enters, she may have a chance to see the guy who defeated the general, but should she go in? If she can't get out, then what should the Tenryou Bujio do? What should the people of Inazuma do? She was not afraid of death. But now something happened that frightened her more than death. The invincible General Raiden in her heart fell. He might even have been killed. Its Lord Palace Master. The voice of a shogunate soldier made the people who were originally somewhat discouraged feel the last ray of hope. Even Kyujosara was the same. You just wait here, and Zio Linghua and I will go in and take a look. Yi Shinko did not intend to have any extra conversations with them. How discouraged are these people at this moment, and didn't she feel the same way? But Kyujosara looked at Kamisato Linghua with a puzzled look. She didn't understand why she had to bring this person with her. I know. Although she didn't understand Yi Shinko's idea, but Kyujosara still expressed obedience. Kamisato House is at the foot of Kagemukai Mountain. Yi Godson has a good relationship with the Kamisato family, which is understandable. Surrounded by the shogunate army, the two of them opened the tightly closed door of the castle tower together. It was not until they entered the castle tower that Yi Godson felt relieved. Her expression seemed to have returned to the foxy look that was good at playing with people's hearts. "Do you know why I brought you with me?" She smiled and looked at Kamisato Ayaka beside her. The latter shook her head. "I was thinking that if I couldn't get out, at least I would have a companion, little Ayaka. We might die this time." "Ayaka, I'm not afraid of death. I've already prepared myself to follow the chief priest here." Kamisato Ayaka's response made Yi Godson smile with relief. "You are more generous than me. I have lived for 500 years, and I am still afraid of death." She was actually outdone by a human junior. Yi Godson laughed at herself in her heart. When did she become inferior to a little girl? She was the one who lived longer. "I hope that God doesn't look too scary. Otherwise I will be scared to death, right?" Recharge now, event time. September 15 to September 17, Chapter 16. The castle tower is the residence of the gods. It is also the tallest building in Inazuma. You can see the whole Inazuma from the top of the castle tower. At this moment, Su Ran is in the highest room of the castle tower with the remains of General Raiden. That is the room where General Raiden usually stays. At this moment, General Raiden's eyes have long lost their brilliance. Even his body is not complete. Instead, it is scattered on the ground. Fortunately, it is considered a puppet. This makes Su Ran feel very upset. He thought that it would not take much effort for him to defeat this demon god. But he never thought, a casual blow can beat the long-awaited thunder god like this. There is definitely no problem in repairing it. But after all, we still have to understand some of the structural principles of this body first. At worst, I can upgrade her when the time comes, just as compensation. With his ability, it is not a problem to upgrade the configuration of General Raiden and improve some intelligence. Su Ran picked up General Raiden's head, staring into those lifeless eyes. At this moment, the door was knocked. "Come in." Kamisato Ayaka and Yi Shinko outside the door took a deep breath. They mustered up their courage and pushed the door open. It was just the scene inside the house. They suddenly regretted coming in like this. They saw a strange man. He was holding the general's head and looking at it carefully, and around him was the body of General Raiden. Kamisato Ayaka looked at the remains of the puppets on the ground. She looked confused and puzzled. It can be seen that the original appearance of the puppet is the general, but the general is not a puppet. Then who is the puppet on the ground? Unlike the confused Kamisato Ayaka, Yi Shinko's heart was hanging at this moment. Finally, he died completely. She knelt directly on the ground, looking at the remains of the general. It was all destroyed like this, Ying probably also, as a good friend of Lei Yingying, a follower of Ming Shen. Yi Goddess knew it very well. This doll is the body of Ying. She even taught him how to attach consciousness to an object. So the general is ruined now. How good can Ying's fate be, seeing Yi Goddess like this? Kamisato Ayaka also had a bad premonition in her heart. A possibility that she had never imagined emerged in her mind. The wreckage on the ground. Could it be the general? "Yo, Tilda, I didn't expect that the people who came were you too." Su Ran looked at the two people in surprise. He was not surprised by Yi Goddess's arrival. It's just that Kamisato Ayaka also came. It was beyond his expectations. Although the body was destroyed, I have never seen her. Lei Dianying has always been in a closed state, and the general has never passed anything to her. But at this moment, The general's body as a carrier was destroyed. Then the door to the pure land of one heart was naturally completely locked. Yi Goddess was a little less desperate. Since he didn't say Ying was dead, there was still hope. May I know the name of this, God? She adjusted her mindset. She tried to establish a conversation, although she couldn't feel any pressure from the man in front of her. He looked like just an ordinary person, and didn't even have the aura of a so-called strong man. But the general's fate made it impossible for her to be tough. They can only face it with a humble attitude. Su Ran, an adventor, currently works as an executive of the Fatui. Yi Shinko and Kamisato Ayaka looked at each other. They both saw the doubt in each other's eyes. Fatui executive? Are Fatui so scary now? Can an executive kill a real demon? What, do you think I'm lying? Su Ran put down the general's head in his hand. He looked at them with a gentle smile on his face. The smile was very gentle, but they felt very cold in their hearts. That's not the case, it's just. I never thought that Fatui could actually invite someone like you. Even if it was really a joke. Yi Shinko had to admit it. I originally wanted to come to Inazuma as a guest, but I didn't expect the host here to be so fierce. My little heart was beating so fast. He covered his heart with his palm. He pretended to be frightened. I just didn't expect that the owner of this place was good. Looking but useless. I accidentally ruined it. Hee hee. Even though her fists were clenched tightly, she was scared. But Yi Shinko still had to put on a smile to accompany her. You. Su Ran suddenly pointed at Kamisato Ayaka. Me. This sudden action scared the girl's voice. The body was shaking because of fear. If she killed someone directly, Kamisato Ayaka would not feel fear. At most, she would die and accompany the general to the underworld. It would be worth it, but he didn't. You look good. Kamisato Ayaka's breathing was a little tight. It wasn't because of shame, but because of fear. After knowing that the wreckage on the ground might be General, lay Diane. She began to be afraid. Even if Su Ran was praising herself at this moment, she still felt fear. I've been sitting in this room for a day, and my shoulders are a little sore. Can you please massage my shoulders for me? He even used the words please and help. This made Kamisato Ayaka feel flattered. Okay, Lord God. She walked cautiously behind Su Ran. She stretched out her delicate little hands and began to massage his shoulders. The smell of this Lord God is so fragrant, except for fear. This was Kamisato Ayaka's second thought after approaching Su Ran. Yi Shinko looked at her with a complicated expression. The environment in Inazuma is much better than Zhidong. Wherever I go out, it's all white, and the girls there dress like dumplings. Su Ran sighed. If you like, you can stay in Inazuma. Yi Shinko laughed dryly. Well, that's what I was planning. By the way, do you still have the materials to make the general? Yes, how much do you need? Yi Shenzi didn't dare to ask what it was for. Repair the Thunder General, remember to prepare more. Okay, I understand. Shenzi finally breathed a sigh of relief. This is good news. As for the general, she can't repair it, but maybe the god in front of her can. If the general is not there, then the shadow can't appear in the world. Then prepare it. As for Kamisato Ayaka, stay by my side and act as my maid for the time being. Yes. Yi Shenzi quickly got up and left, not at all dragging her feet. This made Kamisato Ayaka, who was still pinching her shoulders, stunned. The chief priest left, but she was left behind. Chapter 17. Considering that Yi Shinko always seemed to have a plan in mind, Kamisato Ayaka even had some doubts. Did the other party have already planned it out and used her as a bargaining chip? Without Yishinko, Kamisato Ayaka felt even more uneasy, especially since the body of the general was scattered all over the room, and at this moment she was serving a god. Kamisato Ayaka was massaging Su-ran's shoulders. Although she was not as scared as before, she became more nervous. Are you worried about Inazuma, Miss Ayaka? Because Su-ran had his back to Kamisato Ayaka at the moment. That's why she couldn't see his face. Without looking at each other, people wouldn't panic. They could also think more rationally. But this also gave Kamisato Ayaka a headache, because the most fundamental criminal who caused the chaos in Inazuma was the Fatui, and the man in front of her happened to be the executive officer of the Fatui. This also made her very distressed about how to answer this question. Yes, after thinking about many situations, Kamisato Ayaka decided to tell the truth to this strange god. She also knew that it was absolutely irrational to deceive the gods with lies, no matter what the situation was. For this you have made a lot of efforts, yes, even betraying General Raiden and contacting the rebels privately. At this moment, Kamisato Ayaka did not dare to speak. She didn't know how to answer this question, although the ultimate goal was for Inazuma, but contacting the rebels was an act of betraying General Raiden. It's just in this castle tower, under the broken body of General Raiden, but she didn't have the courage to admit it. Don't worry, your general can't hear it. She doesn't even have her life now. Su-ran smiled and comforted her. But it's not funny. Don't be so scared. Just treat me as an ordinary person. Can't we chat? Kamiri Ayaka's silence made him feel a little bored. His power may be a little bit stronger, but in terms of his character, he is still a well-deserved human being. When facing normal people, he doesn't like to use a condescending attitude. Then, why did you come to Inazuma? Except for the defeat of the Thunder God, Su-ran actually did nothing else to irritate Kamisato Ayaka. Didn't I just say that the girls in Jidong are too tightly dressed, and I don't find it interesting to look at them? Su-ran sighed. This answer made Kamisato Ayaka not know how to respond, because this is a very human answer. It doesn't sound like something a god would say. So, did you come to Inazuma to see girls? If that was all, then it wouldn't be necessary to beat the general like this, right? Well, even though the Ice Queen is beautiful, my subjective aesthetics still prefer Inazuma and Liu, but the gods of Inazuma attract me more than the gods of Liu. So you were beaten like this by the general as soon as you came to Inazuma. What do you think of the military advisor of the rebels? The topic was brought to another girl again. Kamiri Ayaka tilted her head. Miss Zin, Hai is a powerful military advisor. I never thought she could lead Kaigi Island and fight against the shogunate for so long. It's a pity that I didn't meet her. He, maybe she is a social phobia. The military advisor of Kaigi Island who would lose energy because his diary was read. It really didn't look like anything catching at first. It was the later plot that slowly made up for some of his face. But Su-ran still liked this ornamental fish. If that's the case, then Miss Zin, Hai is pretty cute. Kamiri Ayaka didn't really believe what Su-ran said. She didn't meet her because she thought that there were many things that Coral Palace Zin, Hai needed to consider. She was also worried that if the connection with her was exposed, it would likely drag the Kamisato family into the abyss. That's why she didn't meet her. They always chose to communicate through letters. Enyi Shenzi walked out of the castle tower. Seeing this, Kyujo-sera's eyes were full of joy. Lord Palace Master, you're back. Yi Shenzi was able to walk out of the castle tower safely. This means that everything is fine, especially the smile on her face. It gave Kyujosara a huge confidence. Okay, don't be so nervous, everything is fine. As for the general, it's okay. General Raiden's end was not good. But Yi Shenzi was not an idiot. It was impossible to expose such a thing. He could only use lies to appease the people in front of him. Great, great, I hope the general is fine. With the assurance of Yi Shinko, Kyujosara was overjoyed. Before, she even forgot how to cry because of sadness. But after hearing what Yi Shinko said, she cried happily again. By the way, where is Miss Kamisato? Kyujosara realized that Yi Shinko did not bring Kamisato Ayake back with him. The castle tower has been deserted for a long time, leaving only the general and another god. Shouldn't one person be left to serve them? Yi Shinko did feel a little sorry for leaving Kamisato Ayaka in there. But what else could she do if she didn't do this? It wasn't her decision, but, Mr. Palace Master, can Sarah serve the two gods instead of Miss Kamisato? Kyujosara was naturally very scared because she hadn't seen General Raiden for a long time. Even with the assurance of Yi Shinko, she also had to see General Raiden with her own eyes to be able to completely calm down. But Yi Shinko would not agree to this request. It was not easy to get a little hope back. If Sarah saw the remains of the general, wouldn't this be completely desperate? Ha, ridiculous, even a fox fairy as beautiful and intelligent as this palace priest could not get the opportunity to stay and serve the gods because of poor craftsmanship. Do you think you can be more beautiful than me, little Tengu? Can you serve people better than Miss Kamisato, who is not even comparable to this palace priest? Yi Shinko's words were full of contempt. It seemed that she really looked down on Kyujosara. Chapter 18. Yes, I said something wrong. Kyujosara was also very tactful. Although she was loyal to the general, loyal to Inazuma, but in the final analysis, she grew up in the Tenryou Bujio. She was someone who could lead troops to fight, not someone who could serve people, compared to Kamisato Ayaka, who was called the White Egret Princess. As a warrior, Kyujosara did seem a bit rough, rashly going to replace Kamisato Ayaka, who served the gods. Maybe it would have the opposite effect, but not being able to see General Raiden really made her very anxious. Also, from today on, remember to deliver meals to the two gods and the girl from Kamisato's family. Su-ran might not need to eat, but Kamisato Ayaka did. Yi Shinko didn't think that the strange god would take care of Ayaka. After all, Ayaka was the one who was treated as a maid to serve the gods. I understand. A glimmer of hope rose in Kyujosara's heart. Perhaps seeing her little thoughts, Yi Godchild warned again. Remember, just put the food at the door of the room on the top floor. Don't enter rashly, otherwise it will cause the wrath of the gods, and no one in your Kyujo family will survive. On weekdays, Yi Godchild would not say such cruel words, but now is different. Now she is the head of Inazuma. Everything must be done with caution. The general's destruction must not be spread. It must not cause panic among the people of Inazuma. Otherwise, the more chaotic Inazuma will only fall into a more irreparable situation. So it is still necessary to settle the current tense situation. Kyujosara, whose hope was cut off, was a little annoyed, but she would not disobey orders. Yi Godchild is a follower of Ming Shen. Under the premise that the general did not speak, she is the person with the highest status in Inazuma. Especially in this situation now. On ordinary days, the three magistrates may pretend to obey the Narukami Taisha. But now it is not possible. Under the premise that the general does not show up, Yi Kimiko has become their backbone. Although the heads of the Kyujo family and the Hiragi family are still panicking at this moment, but they have also reached a consensus. They can do whatever they want in Inazuma. They rely on the existence of the Thunder General to support them. Now the general may be in trouble, so what else can they do? They still have to find someone to support them. And this person must not be them. It can't be the head of the Kamisato family who has been suppressed. It can only be the fox fairy Yikamiko, because she is neither human nor on the side. She is also a Narukami family. Whether in status or ability, she is one of the best. Let Yikamiko support them, and they can also feel at ease. Okay, Inazuma's martial law can be lifted. Since the gods are at peace, there is no need to waste resources like this. If General Raiden is fine, why would Inazuma still be on high alert? Isn't this a clear sign of guilt? Inazuma is already in chaos. If it gets more chaotic now, who knows what will happen? I understand. Kyujo Sera, who received the order, did not dare to slack off. The order was passed down quickly. Looking at the shogunate troops in front of him, he seemed relieved. Yi Kamiko breathed a sigh of relief. But she doesn't have that much time to waste now. If the General of Thunder and Lightning is not repaired one day, this doubt will never be eliminated. 500 years ago, in order to make a doll that can carry the heart of God, Ying used a lot of materials, but fortunately, there are still some materials. If they can be collected quickly, maybe the general can recover soon. Yi Shenzi is about to return to Narukami Taisha, because the doll of Thunder and Lightning was made in Narukami Taisha. It was also at that time. The heart of God was given to her for safekeeping. The only pity is that the heart of God was not carried on the doll according to the original design. Perhaps it is for this reason, so the general looks, so heartless, right, on the way back to Narukami by Yi Shenzi. A guy she didn't want to see appeared. Mr. Palace Master, I heard that my sister went to the castle tower with you to meet the gods. The head of the Kamisato family, Kamisato Ayato, took the initiative to find him. As early as after hearing the news that Kamisato Ayaka followed Yi Kamiko to the castle tower, Kamisato Ayato could no longer sit still. He quickly went out, in an attempt to stop his silly sister's foolish behavior. After the general sank into the sea, there was no movement at all. No one knew whether General Raiden was dead or alive at this moment. The sister followed Yi Kamiko to the castle tower to face the strange god. If this is not seeking death, then what is it? Unfortunately, the journey from Kamisato's house to Inazuma Castle is a bit far. He was still a little slow after all. At this moment, Yi Kamiko had also left the castle tower. The only thing that made him dissatisfied was, Kamisato Ayaka didn't come out with her. Oh Tilda, there's no way. The little girl is very pleasing to the Lord God, so she stayed there. I really envy that little girl. As for whether she was dead or alive, Yi Kamiko didn't dare to guarantee it. Ayaka stayed inside, looking at the castle tower that went straight into the clouds. Kamisato Ayato wanted to go in directly, but reason finally prevailed over emotion. My sister must not be in trouble, but Inazuma must not be in trouble either. Humans are so powerless in the face of gods. Look at you. If that little girl can please the gods, wouldn't the Kamisato family's predicament be solved? Although she didn't want to see Kamisato Ayato, but now that she has seen him, then Yi Shinko will not be tolerant. Give this kid a try. See if he can break his defense. If he doesn't break his defense, it's fine. She doesn't have any extra thoughts to continue to intrigue with him. If he breaks his defense, that's not bad. At least give her some fun so that she won't be under so much pressure. My sister is just an ordinary person. How can she be in the eyes of the gods? Foxes like Yi Shinko have come out. Could it be that the god would like Ayaka? Only at this time, Kamisato An would admit that Yi Kamiko was more beautiful than Ayaka. But Yi Kamiko smiled and said nothing. Her appearance made An a little nervous. Could she really like him? Speaking of which, I am still a little envious. That God praised the beauty of little Ayaka, which is an honor that even this priest has not been able to get. Kamisato An was hit hard. Chapter 19. As the sky gradually darkened, Kyujo Sera carried a huge lunch box and climbed up to the highest room of the castle tower. Because of the order of Yi Shinko, she didn't have to search room by room. Of course, it was also because it was getting dark. At this moment, only one room in the castle tower was still lit. It was also easy to find. She took the initiative to complete the task of delivering the meal. Kyujo Sera still had some selfish motives. She still wanted to witness it with her own eyes. Even if there was no chance, she hoped to get some information from Kamisato Ayaka. Lord God, dinner is ready. Do you need to bring it in? She knocked on the door, but she didn't dare to peek inside. Yi Shinko's warning seemed to still linger in her ears. Miss Kyujo, put down the meal and leave on your own. Kamisato Ayaka's voice was heard in the room. I know. There was another Kamisato Ayaka in the room. But even though Kyujo Sera knew that Kamisato Ayaka might be saying what God meant, she still felt unwilling. The pace of leaving the room was very slow. She was just one step away from looking back, just when Kyujo Sera was almost dying of anxiety. Kamisato Ayaka opened the door, but after seeing Kyujo Sera not far away, she closed the door again. She was afraid of being seen inside. After all this behind, the scene's general was very loyal to the general. If he saw that scene, no one knew whether Kyujo Sera would lose his mind, and then take revenge on Su Ran. Failure was inevitable, and it would also cause Inazuma to fall into a more terrible hell. Therefore, even if Yi Shinko said nothing, Kamisato Ayaka knew what she should do. She might be a little naive, but she was definitely not stupid. Miss Kyujo, I know what you want to know, but the only thing I can say is that the general is still alive. After an afternoon of communication, Kamisato Ayaka was not so afraid of Su Ran, even if they did not become close friends all of a sudden. Then, is the general okay? Being alive doesn't mean everything is fine. Kyujo Sera looked at Kamisato Ayaka's appearance. He could also guess that the general must be in danger. Not very good, but at least he's still alive, and he can continue to rule Inazuma in the future. Kamisato Ayaka still didn't dare to reveal the truth. She was afraid that Kyujo Sera would collapse because of this. It was just her words. Instead, it made Kyujo Sera more worried. The current situation of the Raiden General is not good, and the only good news is that he is still alive. And he will still be the god of Inazuma in the future. The Raiden General, who was invincible in the heart of the Shogunate General, just fell down like this. Can I see him? Kamisato Ayaka shook her head helplessly. Okay. Kyujo Sera left with some disappointment. Although a little disappointed, this trip was not a loss. She knew more news with the defeat of the general. She had already prepared for the worst. He even thought about the possibility of Inazuma changing his master. He also thought about slaughtering all the people who didn't like Inazuma. although he got some not so good news this time. But at least it is good news. The general is still here, but Inazuma is not done yet. Watching Kyujosera disappear completely, Kamisato Ayaka breathed a sigh of relief. This loyal fan of the general left. She felt relieved, because not all of what she said just now was true. The real Thunder God is indeed fine, but the god who has managed Inazuma for 500 years is undoubtedly dead. That is because the general is not a real life, so it is not defined as death, but destruction, and Kyujosera couldn't be allowed to see the Thunder General just now. It's not because Su-ran didn't allow it. Of course he allowed it. After all, it's not a big deal to take a look. But the remains of the general on the ground will definitely make people collapse. Therefore, Kamisato Ayaka shook her head, meaning that she didn't want Kyujosera to see it. Rather than stopping him from seeing it, she returned to the door and brought the lunch box that Kyujosera brought into the house. I gradually understand all this. Holding the head of the Thunder General, Su-ran finally understood the structure of General Raiden. It must be said that Lei Dianying is indeed a genius, because this puppet is indeed very realistic. No matter which aspect, he even doubted whether Ying had considered these. Of course, it is not just realistic. More importantly, this is also a puppet that can carry the power of the demon god. This alone is enough to show that Lei Dianying's ability is better than Duatole. Although in his eyes, Duatole is not a compliment. It's just that AI is too rigid and it is easy to fall into a dead loop. Relying on such an imperfect puppet, he was able to manage Inazuma for so many years. It should be said that the family assets left by Lei Dianjin were thick enough. Allowing her to squander like this, or maybe Yi Godson has worked hard and made great contributions. Lord Su-ran, dinner is here. After an afternoon of communication, Kamisato Ayaka dared to call Su-ran by name. It's a pity that human emotions are not easy to analyze too much with data, if it is described by favorability. At this moment, Kamisato Ayaka's favorability towards Su-ran has reached at least 40. Then let's eat together. In terms of beauty, Kamisato Ayaka is a little inferior to the Ice Queen and Columbia, because they are gods and fairies. They have natural advantages. Mortals can't compare at all, but who can blame Kamisato Ayaka's appearance, which is based on Su-ran's subjective aesthetics? She has natural advantages. Just as I expected, you dare not let her in. He was originally looking forward to seeing what kind of expression Kyujosera would have when he saw the end of General Thunder. Unfortunately, he missed it. If she saw it, she would definitely collapse. Kamisato Ayaka also knew what the consequences would be. At the beginning, she was not afraid of death and stepped onto the castle tower, because she didn't think there was anything that would scare her more than death. But when she first came in, she was really scared to death, because the faith in her heart was destroyed. And it was destroyed very cruelly. This is too cruel for a believer like her. If it were a fanatic like Kyujosera, the consequences would be even more cruel. Chapter 20. Master, the Tenryou Bujio still won't let you go. Toma, the household official of the Kamisato family, returned to the Mokuro tea house. He reported the news in great distress. The Kamisato family lost one Kamisato Ayaka, which may not be a big loss for the entire shrine Bujio, but for Kamisato Ayato alone, it was like the sky falling. He grew up with his sister since childhood. He has long regarded his sister and the entire Kamisato family as the most important existence in his heart. But now Kamisato Ayaka has not shown up for a week, even though Kyujo Sera has repeatedly assured him. He is still worried, especially now that the castle tower has been closed, except for the Yi god of Narukami Taisha. Only Kyujo Sera is qualified to enter and exit the castle tower. However, even Kyujo Sera himself has never seen the Thunder General. This makes Kamisato Ayato even more worried. Could it be that the god of Inazuma is actually dead? The so-called god in the castle tower is just an illusion. Maybe the foreign god is not in the castle tower at all. Of course, speculation is speculation, but what is the truth? Kamisato Ayato did not have the courage to explore. His only worry was whether his sister saw the so-called truth and was imprisoned, or another possibility he absolutely did not want to think about. This time I will go in person. The previous few times Thomas applied on his behalf. This time Kamisato Ayato planned to go to the castle tower alone, to pay a visit to the god. No matter what the outcome was, he wanted to know about his sister's situation. And there were more people who had the same idea. Kamisato Ayato was not the only one. The Tenryou Takeyuki Kyujo also came. After General Raiden did not show up, he became more worried, and these days Yi Godson was still transporting things to the castle tower non-stop. This made it even more mysterious. Although Kyujo Takeyuki hoped that there would be a tall person to support Inazuma, but he didn't want to be kept in the dark, in front of the main gate of the castle tower. He saw Kamisato Ayato, who came with him. Maybe in the past they didn't get along well, but now the situation is different. Inazuma is in trouble. The gods are nowhere to be found. If he doesn't know the truth, he will not be able to sleep or eat. Long time no see, Lord Kyujo. Kamisato Ayato really doesn't like the person in power of the Tenryou Bujio. But no matter how much he hates him, they are both the managers of the three Bujio under the command of General Raiden. It seems that we have the same idea, Lord Kamisato. There was a little disdain in Kyujo Takeyuki's tone. The shrine Bujio had long been lonely, and the current head is the young man Kamisato Ayato. As an elder, he has a certain degree of superiority, not to mention the low competitive shrine Bujio, but in front of the castle tower. There are still some necessary courtesies. The chapel magistrate is just lonely. He has not completely disappeared. The two people, who are not in harmony with each other, have made plans without much discussion and go to the castle tower together. After all, they are two of the three people with the highest status in Inazuma, in addition to General Raiden and Yi Miko. If they go to the castle tower together, they may be qualified to meet the gods. Sorry, Master Kamisato, no one is allowed to enter the castle tower without the permission of the gods. Kyujo Sera stopped the two. Sera, I have something important to report to the general. Kyujo Takeyuki was unhappy, but he did not force his way in. This adopted daughter has a high status in the Tenryou Bujio and the shogunate army. Then please report the important matter to me, and I will hand it over to the general. Kyujo Sera couldn't let anyone in at this moment. Whether it was Yi Miko's warning or Kamisato Ayaka's words, they warned her of the seriousness of the matter. Especially Kamisato Ayaka also told her, if she was not careful, it would likely cause changes in the Inazuma regime. This made Kyujo Sera even more frightened, whether it was the replacement of the three magistrates or something else. There would be some changes, but what Kamisato Ayaka said was obviously not that simple. The one who would be replaced by the gods at that time might be the gods. This also made Kyujo Sera dare not slack off or have any expectations. She could only do the tasks given by the eightfold godchild seriously. Even for herself, apart from delivering 3 meals, she had never stepped into the castle tower. At this moment, even if the head of the Kyujo family and the head of the Kamisato family came, she would not let them go. She just stayed outside the castle tower silently. Even if she knew that the war on the front line was tense, she never left. No compromise. Kamisato Ayaka saw the seriousness of Kyujo Sera. This was really not going to let anyone in. This matter is of great importance. I must report it to the general in person. Kyujo Takeyuki's eyes widened with anger. Even an adopted daughter. At this moment, he dared to talk to me like this, for him who was obsessed with power. It was even more of a provocation. All soldiers, listen to my order. If anyone tries to break into the castle tower, take him down immediately, no matter if he lives or dies. Kyujo Sera immediately issued a death order, comparing the Kyujo family with the divine power of General Raiden. It's not worth mentioning at all, even if the Kyujo family will be destroyed because of this. She doesn't care. Kyujo Takeyuki's face was extremely ugly, but looking at those shogunate troops who had already pointed their spears at him, he was helpless. Then, Miss Sera, can you let your sister show up and meet me? Can you enter the castle tower? Kamisato Ayato didn't have much expectations, but his real purpose was to see how his sister was. As long as Ayaka was okay, everything would be fine. Sorry, unless it's time to deliver food, I can't enter the castle tower even if I want to. If Kamisato wants to see you, I can tell Miss Ayaka, provided that she is willing to come out to see me. But Kyujo Sera doesn't think Kamisato Ayaka will come out. She herself doesn't know the situation in the castle tower. But Kamisato Ayaka must know. If it's really so serious that it's unspeakable, maybe Kamisato Ayaka herself is not willing to come down. Chapter 21. Here is, the gate of Yixin Pure Land was completely closed. General Lei Dian lost contact. This made Lei Dian, who had been in meditation, realize the crisis. Unfortunately, without opening the door, no matter what happened in the outside world, she could not respond. She could only wait for the day when the door to reality would reopen. Fortunately, that day did not take too long to wait, but what was waiting for her outside? This was something Ying could not know. Going out might be risky, but if she didn't go out, she could do nothing. In the end, Lei Dian chose to face the unknown. Ying, you finally woke up. General, is that you? Lei Dian slowly opened her eyes. She looked at the 2 behemoths in front of her in a daze. Son of God, how did you become so big? Looking at the eightfold Son of God who had been covering his mouth and laughing, Lei Dian vaguely realized that something was wrong. She slowly stood up, but she found that even when she stood up, she was not as tall as the 2 people kneeling on the ground. Ying looked at his hands and touched his head again. Something seems wrong. No, it's not right at all. Ha ha ha. Yi Shinko finally couldn't help it and started laughing wildly while clapping on the floor. Even Kamisato Ayaka was watching from the side. She couldn't help laughing, because at this moment all of Lei Yingying's consciousness and power are in a small armed puppet. This 2-headed armed puppet looks very cute, but if this is Inizuma's thunder god, that would be a big joke. What's going on? Why did the general become like this? Who did it? The son of God, or the white-haired guy next to him? Lei Yingying has been autistic in the Pure Land for 500 years. He has never seen the outside world. Naturally, he doesn't know Kamisato Ayaka. Isn't this obvious? Ying now looks like a little baby. Do you need your sister to give you a candy? If it wasn't clear, Ying at this moment still has the power of a god. Yi Shenzi really wanted to hold her in his arms. Stop it. If nothing happens, change me back. She still believed that the other party had used some unknown means, which caused her body to become like this. Ahem, Ying, I have a question for you. Before the general lost contact with you, did you? No, nothing. Yi Shenzi looked strange. He didn't even know what happened, and the general was defeated. What do I know? Why was the gate of the pure land of one heart suddenly sealed? Lei Dianying had several questions to ask at this moment. The gate of the pure land of one heart was not closed by outsiders. Except for the general, other people had stronger power, but before that, she could not sense any strong people at all. Shen Lai Linghua saw that the god was so confused. She pointed behind her with her little finger. Yi Shenzi also put away her smile, and her expression became serious. Lei Dianying, who noticed something wrong, turned around and looked. Not far away, there was a strange man sitting there. Next to him was another thunder general. Not only that, there are also debris, similar to the general around. It seems that you have awakened. General Raiden walked into the petite armed puppet. You are the general. Why did I cut off contact with you? Ying looked at the familiar body in front of her. Very surprised, she didn't know why she was separated from the general. Could it be that the law of nature took action? She subconsciously looked at the man. Do you see the debris around? The general pointed to the scattered, damaged bodies on the ground. That was my former body, a body that was beaten up by someone. Lei Yingying walked to a scattered part in disbelief. As the creator of the puppet general Raiden, she knew very well that what the general said was true. This means that Inazuma has a great enemy. What is your purpose? Lei Yingying immediately locked onto Su Ran, who had been watching the show in silence. Although Kamisato Ayaka had elemental power, but she was immortal after all. Only Su Ran was different. She couldn't see through it. It wasn't like the fog that couldn't see through it, but in Lei Dianying's eyes. She could only see the image of Su Ran's existence. In other words, she could only see the appearance. Purpose: does Kamisato Ayaka count? Does Yi Shenzi count? Or does Thunder God count? Su Ran smiled and looked at the petite Lei Dianying. What purpose could he have in coming to Inazuma? What do you mean? Lei Dianying frowned. Could it be that he came to assassinate? But being able to break the general, in fact, it was no different from a successful assassination. Why did he repair the general? And free himself from the pure land of one heart? Isn't this simple? Yi Shenzi poked Ying's little face. Ying, the three of us will share one husband from now on. Lei Dianying pulled away Shenzi's devilish hand. I have only one wish, and that is to pursue eternity. I will not let anyone become a hindrance to me, or a burden to my pursuit of eternity. She will not be a partner with this man, even if he is very strong, unless he is eternity itself. You don't think I like you, do you? Su Ran didn't know how to understand Lei Dianying's confidence. Not this body. What he got was a denial. Lei Dianying was also a little embarrassed. There is always a feeling of being regarded as self-righteous. But isn't she the god of thunder? It's me. General Lei Dian spoke. I can't repay you for saving my life, so I will repay you with my body. But he was the one who broke you. If it weren't for the old body parts all over the floor, Lei Dianying would really believe what the general said. He was the one who broke you, and he was also the one who made you good again. How can this be a life, saving grace? Shouldn't the merits and demerits offset each other? Adding the attack on the gods, the demerit is even greater. He is the one who can save me from the mission of pursuing eternity. Recharge now, event time. September 15 to September 17, Chapter 22. Are you going to betray eternity? When General Lei Dian said that he was rescued from his mission, Lei Dianying's expression was as wonderful as it could be. The general's setting for eternity was added by her, even to prevent the possibility that one day, even she might betray eternity. Lei Dianying also added a setting that even she couldn't solve for the general, but even so, the general was still tampered with. No, it's just that eternity is my only mission in life, and eternity should be my pursuit. The pursuit of eternity without bottom line. You can even go against the orders of your creator, Lei Dianying, for the general who has greatly improved his intelligence. It is simply a stupid setting. She also couldn't understand why her inner self would do this. Eternity. Eternity is important, but does the inner self really know what true eternity is? To Lei Dianying, who doesn't seem to be very smart, General Lei Dian expressed some doubts. You are so stupid. How dare you teach me what eternity is? What do you know about eternity, Lei Dianying? I will no longer obey your orders and follow the false eternity. The real eternity will soon come to Inazuma. Lei Dianying opened his eyes wide. He stared at the general blankly. What is his false eternity? Is eternity still true or false? Ahem, let me ask you, what is the eternity you are talking about? General Lei Dian is much more rigid than Ying. Yi Shenzi is also worried about whether he will remake the general. What did that man add in private? General Lei Dianying stretched out his hand to Yi Shenzi. An exquisite chess piece was taken away by her in an instant. Even if the body dies, the consciousness can still exist forever, without wear and tear, no war, no death, Inazuma. It will become a perfect country in dreams. The general presented the heart of God to Su Ran. It felt like he was willing to worship as his adoptive father. I don't understand. Lei Dianying stared at Su Ran with his cute big eyes. She was full of vigilance against this person. Because he is very powerful, he even controlled General Raiden. This is a very dangerous person, Lei Yingying, but he seems to understand eternity. All exceptions will be excluded, because it is possible to destroy the eternity of Inazuma. Su Ran is also an exception. Lei Yingying does not think that there is a being that cannot even beat the general. He still has a chance of winning. But since Su Ran also intends to take the path of eternity, then it's okay. I plan to collect all the people who exist in the land of Inazuma in a dream. This is Su Ran's idea. He plans to imitate a Pinocchio, but this seems to be a little difficult. But it doesn't matter. Give him some time. It can be successful. The heart of God is naturally someone else's ashes, but it also has the power to make people become gods. It can completely serve as the core of the dream. Because there is no body to drag, people will not die. In addition, since they do not exist in reality, their consciousness will not be worn out by the law of nature. Then is a country without death and loss an eternal country. Su Ran held the little Lei Dianying in his arms. She did not resist. In fact, after hearing Su Ran's plan, Ying only wanted to say one thing. This is great. If this is not eternity, then what is eternity? There is no death, no loss. Isn't that the eternity she is looking for? This Su Ran. Isn't it someone sent by God to fulfill her wishes? Although it sounds incredible, but Lei Dianying listened carefully and felt that this was very thoughtful. because she herself used a similar method to avoid eternity, abandon the body and separate the consciousness from reality. This kind of eternity, Shen Lai Linghua's heart, which had been relieved, was once again tense at this moment. This kind of people give up reality and enter a false dream. Can this really be regarded as eternity? Why do I feel that Lord Su Ran's actions are likely to be more terrible than the general's eye-hunting order and the lock-up order? In fact, it is not only Shen Lai Linghua who has the same idea. Yi Shenzi also thinks so. Abandon reality and plunge into dreams. She can dislike it at all. There are so many interesting things in reality. She can't bear to give it up. Okay, I will assist you. Lei Dianying agreed with this eternity, or rather, the eternity described by Su Ran. It is the real eternity she has always wanted to pursue. It's just because of her own thinking and strength. She never thought about doing that, and she can't do it. If Su Ran really did that, then she would definitely be the one who supports it the most. Lei Dianying quickly changed sides. It was still within Su Ran's expectations, but it was beyond the expectations of Yi Shenzi and Kamisato Ayaka. The two looked at each other. It's bad. It feels like something worse than the eye-hunting order, and the locking order is going to happen to Inazuma. Especially, there are now 3 god-level beings involved. At this moment, even Yi Shenzi had the idea of joining since he couldn't beat him. Because if he resisted, he would have to face 3 gods. I'm a little looking forward to the subsequent development. Make Inazuma the second Pinocchio. Su Ran's real idea is not to make money by running a hotel resort like Pinaconi, because he knows that there will be rebels no matter what. Although Yi Shinko didn't say anything, she was also calm, but she is definitely a rebel. As for Kamisato Ayaka, looking at that little expression, it is clear that she may be thinking about a way to break the deadlock. But Su Ran doesn't care, but is looking forward to it. What he really wants is to see how the rebels struggle, how to resist, how to face the gods, and how to break Inazuma's dream. To rescue everyone from the dream. So the traveler has become the most important person, because the rebels must also have a leader, or the protagonist. But the traveler is still fighting the wind dragon in Mondstadt, right? I don't know if it's Kong or Ying. I hope it's Ying. Abyss Cult, please give the prince a favor. Chapter 23. Lord God, dinner has been delivered. Bring it in. Kyujo Sarah was stunned outside the door. These days, this is the first time she heard a voice other than Kamisato Ayaka and Yi Goddess from inside the house. And it seems to be a male. Could it be that the god who defeated General Raiden is a man? Although Kyujo Sarah was a little surprised. But she also felt a little happy in her heart. She finally had a chance to take a look at the situation inside the house. After opening the door, the figure of General Raiden also made her completely relieved. The worries and panic of these days also dissipated one by one. In addition to the strange man, Kyujo Sarah suddenly discovered another special existence. That was Raiden, who could only move through the body of the armed puppet. She glanced at the still majestic General Raiden in the house. And then she glanced at the petite little General Raiden. Could it be that the reason why the general has not gone out these days is because of the little general, marriage between gods? It's not like she hasn't heard of it, but when she thought about this kind of thing and put it on the gods she believed in, she felt like she was going to collapse. This kind of thing. At least it will have to wait for 1,000 years after her death before it happens. Kyujo Sarah brought the dinner in with some disheartenment. Seeing someone delivering the dinner, Lei Dianying took the initiative to step forward. Are there any desserts? Although the things here are a bit devastating, but seeing Lei Dianying's appearance, Kyujo-sera felt healed instantly. Sorry, young general, I didn't think of your existence, so I didn't prepare any desserts. If you need it, I'll prepare it right away. Lei Dianying. Young general, I admit that I'm very young now, but why does this title sound weird? And what's with your eager eyes, Sarah? Kyujo-sera has already restrained himself. If he hadn't lived in the barracks for many years, he would have had strict training requirements for himself. Maybe she would be like an ordinary girl at this moment. She immediately showed her maternal instinct and hugged Ying in her arms. Forget it, I don't really want to eat it. It doesn't matter if there is no. At most I can ask Shenzi to bring some next time. Lei Dianying is not in a hurry, because there is something more important than dessert now. That is eternity, an eternity that can be truly realized in Inazuma, although Lei Dianying did not show much concern. But Kyujo-sera still felt extremely regretful in her heart, if she just thought about it a little more. Why can't the young general eat dessert? I'm so stupid, really. Sarah, how is Inazuma these days? As a puppet created by Lei Dianying to manage Inazuma, General Lei Dian still cares about Inazuma. After Su Ran upgraded her thinking ability, she cares even more. After meeting her loyal subordinate, she also asked about Inazuma's current situation. After all, Shenzi will lie, but Sarah will not. It should be very bad. Kyujo-sera has not yet answered. Su Ran, who was studying the dream machine, gave her the answer first. This also attracted the attention of Lei Yingying. She just didn't take care of Inazuma for 500 years. Is it so bad now? General, how do you do your job? Tenryo Bugio and Kanjo Bugio have colluded with the Fatui, plus the war with Kaigi Island. Inazuma should be in dire straits now. Su Ran didn't understand the overall situation of Inazuma, but he was very clear when he played games. If the ruler of Inazuma was not a god, it would have been torn apart long ago. Impossible. How could the head of the family collude with the Fatui? Even though it was confirmed that Su Ran was the god who suddenly appeared in Inazuma, but Kyujo-sera still plucked up the courage to refute. Her Kyujo family was loyal, and the head of the family believed in General Raiden very much. How could he collude with the Fatui? This is absolutely slander. I am the executive officer of the Fatui. Don't I know whether there is collusion or not? Su Ran stepped forward and patted Sala on the shoulder, and directly gave a personal account. I know you must be very unbelievable now, but it's nothing. In fact, both the closing order and the eye hunting order were promoted by the Fatui. He even directly admitted the Fatui's crimes. I have never seen anyone dare to jump in the face like this. Kyujo Sala. Her mood at this moment can no longer be described as simple shock. She really wants to ask, where did Su Ran get the courage to dare to tell such news in front of the general? Is it because he and the general have a little general? And general, why can you still look indifferent after knowing the truth? Don't you care at all, or did you also betray? Executive officer of the Fatui. General Lei Dian doesn't care, but it doesn't mean that Lei Yingying doesn't care either. Since when did the Fatui's executive become so powerful? What kind of shit luck did the Ice Queen have to recruit such talents? Kamisato Ayaka was extremely troubled. In the past, the Fatui only colluded with the Tenryo Bugio and Kanjo Bugio to promote the eye-hunting order. But now this Lord Su Ran wants to impose an eternal dream on Inazuma, trap everyone in the dream, especially now that even the two generals support his decision very much. Kamisato Ayaka doesn't know what to do at this moment. The will of the gods is hard to shake, especially at this moment when this decision is made. It's not just one god, but three, who can shake the will of the gods now. Even if she resisted very much, she couldn't think of any other choice except lying down. I don't understand. You obviously have a strong power. Why do you want to be someone else's subordinate? Lei Yingying was depressed. Haven't seen each other for 500 years. The ice god is so powerful that he has the ability to recruit someone like Su Ran, who can easily defeat a general. I heard that she wants to rebel against the law of nature. Could it be that has changed its master now? Is the ice god the new law of nature now? Because the ice queen is very beautiful and she wears white silk. Su Ran gave a reason that no one believed. These days, no one believes the truth. Well, it's just because the Fatui gave funds. Is this reason okay? Yi Shenzi rolled her eyes. She didn't believe this reason even more. Your reason is even more outrageous than the previous one. If giving funds is enough, then how much does Jidong give, and how much does Inazuma give? Okay, Inazuma has no money, not as rich as Jidong, but Lei Dianying is no worse than the Ice Queen, especially with this fox fairy who is both beautiful and wise. What does Jidong have? A girl dressed like a Zongzi. Chapter 24 Task Release. Resolve the war between Kaigi Island and the Shogunate. Another task. Su Ran looked at the worried Kamisato Ayaka. Ayaka hasn't been home for a while, right? Today General Raiden has recovered. I'll give you a day off. Go back and see your family. When the dream machine is completed, all the people in Inazuma will enter the dream. Then the war between Kaigi Island and the Shogunate will no longer exist in reality. Because there is everything in the dream, there is no need to argue for so long for those few resources and territories. After a long time, they can't tell the reality from the reality. But if everything is solved so easily, then the play he prepared may not be so interesting. Resistance is still necessary. If the traveler comes to Inazuma and finds that the people of Inazuma have been addicted to dreams and don't want to wake up, then they may not choose to break the dream and liberate Inazuma. So there must be someone as a rebel, because with the rebel, the traveler has a reason to choose to break the dream. If everyone is on the opposite side, then the act of resistance is a crime. Then who will tell the rebels about the dream? Doesn't it have to be Kamisato Ayaka who does it? If it were someone else, they might not have such a deep connection with the rebels. If it were Kamisato Ayaka, then there would be absolutely no problem, because her reputation is so good. The rebels are willing to believe her. Thank you, Lord Su Ran. Even though she had been thinking about how to resist, Kamisato Ayaka didn't feel that she had been wronged during these days in the castle tower. It's better to say that she still likes chatting with Su Ran and serving him. It's a pity that his purpose is too dangerous for the Inazi people. After expressing her gratitude to him, Kamisato Ayaka left first, ready to go back and tell her brother and the rebels' Coral Palace Zin hi about this. Others didn't react to Kamisato Ayaka's sudden departure, because she did stay here for a while. Kyujo Sera can also understand Ayaka's desire to go home. After all, she is not a soldier. As the eldest daughter of the Kamisato family, it is not easy to serve the gods for many days. It is Yi Kamiko who has many questions about Kamisato Ayaka's departure, because the people who dreamed about it were only a few people present. Kyujo Sera is not even clear, But why did he send Kamisato Ayaka away at this time? Go home to see her family. This reason is too outrageous, right? As a god, could he really care so much about the emotions of a mortal? Not to mention that Kamisato Ayaka has never said or expressed that she misses her family. There is not even a little expression. This priest also has many things to deal with at Naruto Taisha. It's late now, and I should go back. Yi Kamiko decided to test it. He tilde. Su Ran stopped analyzing the heart of God. Godson, don't be so anxious to go back, because no matter how urgent the matter is, it doesn't matter. In a week at least, a month at most, everything will no longer be a problem. Yi Godson sat back helplessly. This time, the test has already got the answer. Kamisato Ayaka's departure really has a purpose. That little girl is really stupid. She was used like this without knowing it. Besides, what's fun in Narukami Taisha? Why don't you stay to accompany Zioing? Lei Dianing, the people present are not as old as her even if their ages are added together. How can you call her Zioing? That's right, Tilda, after all. Eyeing is so cute. Although she met Lei Dianing again, but at this moment Yi Shenzi was not very happy. Is she imprisoned? If there is no chance to prepare a backup, then Inazuma is really hopeless. I hope the resistance forces on Hagi Island can play a role. If Zio Linghua goes out, there should be a chance to pass the news to them. The next moment, Yi Shenzi's expression was completely frozen, because she thought of something. That is, Kamisato Linghua went back with Su Ran's permission. She might tell all this to others. Then is it possible to pass this news to the resistance forces? In fact, this is what Su Ran expected. Sensing the look in the eyes of Yi Shinko, Su Ran also wanted to play tricks with her. But how could fighting in the air be as interesting as teasing a fox directly? It seems that you have guessed it, right, Tilda, if the rebels don't know the truth at all. Then once they enter the dream, how can they know that it is not reality? It is to let the rebels know, so they have a reason to resist. In the past, it was for the eye-hunting order and the closing order, but now it is different. Su Ran does not think that the rebels are just simply against those two orders. There has been a long-standing grudge between Hagi Island and the shogunate. Rebels. What rebels? Lei Dianing, who never takes the initiative to learn about the outside world, does not know about the rebels. It is those rebels who oppose the eye-hunting order and the closing order have gathered to Hagi Island to form a force, and the shogunate army is currently suppressing them. Kyujosera told Lei Diani. All the struggles with Hagi Island during this period. This also caused her dissatisfaction. Inuzuma's eternity will never allow any variables. She thought she was meditating in a pure land. The general could solve everything outside. After all, the general's power was equal to hers, unless a demon-level existence appeared. Otherwise, Inazuma would not have any accidents. It was Su Ran's arrival that caused the accident, that made the general have more self. Otherwise, there would be no accidents at all. How come there is another rebel army now? General, how do you do your job? The rebel army is just an ordinary person. Kyujo Takeyuki told me that they can't cause any trouble. He said that Sarah can suppress them by leading the army. General Raiden looked at Kyujosera. At this moment, the pressure was on Kyujosera. She lowered her head in shame, although the shogunate had more victories in this war, but it was an indisputable fact that the rebel army was not completely eliminated. Chapter 25. It's You, Barbados. Holding a heart of God in her hand, MS Rosaline looked at the fallen Wendy with disdain in her eyes. The god of Mondstadt is so weak that he needs human help. To save his family, after Su Ran revealed the clues about the god of wind to her, the lady paid special attention to two taverns in Mondstadt, and then she really found a person who fits the description. Wendy, this bard, appeared in Mondstadt from no one knows when. That is, Mondstadt's air defense is weak at this moment, so Rosaline didn't hide for too long. She found an opportunity to intercept him directly. I didn't expect to find the heart of God from this person. You asked someone to follow me since I arrived in Mondstadt. When did you realize that my identity was wrong? Wendy slowly stood up, holding his chest, although the lady took away his heart of God directly, but it didn't hurt his body. The heart of God is not important. He had intended to use the lady hand to hand over the heart of God to the Ice Queen, but the only thing he couldn't understand was why the lady had discovered his identity so early. This was too suspicious. Even when he was being followed, he pretended to be an ordinary person. No matter how powerful the Fatui were, they couldn't see through his disguise, right? The genius told me. He took the heart of God. The lady might as well have a little chat with this incompetent god. Genius, the new executive. As early as when they entered Mondstadt, Wendy had already discovered these two people. It was just that the other person ran directly to Inazuma. Rosalind didn't plan to chat with Wendy. She hated the god of wind, but she didn't hate him to death. She just resented why Barbados was so weak. Why didn't he come back in time when Mondstadt suffered a disaster? She hated Barbados' weakness, but she never wanted to kill him. Now that she has obtained the heart of God, she doesn't need to see this annoying guy again. It's strange. I have never revealed my identity to outsiders, so how did the executive know? Wendy touched her chin and thought with a puzzled look. The Ice Queen should not be so bored as to reveal her identity directly, because the heart of God will be in her hands anyway. She doesn't need to do anything unnecessary. That descender is really extraordinary. I don't know if it can bring more chances to Zhidong. Wendy has long known the Ice God's plot, but he naturally can't take his people to do things that rebel against the law of nature. After all, if he fails, the end may be the same as that of several other ancient countries. But that descender does need his attention. My lady, the thunderstorm of Inazuma has been lifted. After bringing the heart of God back to the base of the Fatui, Rosaline heard the news. What else? Could it be that the puppet of General Thunder really started to think? Otherwise, how could the country be lifted for no reason? General Thunder was defeated by an outsider, and his life and death are unknown. The thunderstorm is probably lifted because of this. When reporting this news, the Fatui also said it with disbelief. There is no need to doubt the strength of General Thunder. He was the winner who fought his way out of the Demon God War. In the end, he was beaten to death so easily. Is this a joke? Even the lady looked surprised after hearing this news. As far as she knew, there should not be a strong man on the continent of Teyvat who could easily crush the ruling god, unless it was the god of Sky Island. So now General Thunder was defeated. She immediately put the candidate on Su Ran. Being able to kill, Daughter also proved his strength, but having the power of the demon god. It does not mean that he can defeat the Thunder God, because Thor is one of the winners of the demon war. Even if he is just a puppet now, his strength should not be comparable to that of ordinary demons, unless Genius's power has surpassed the vast majority of demons. It is even possible to rival Ice Queen, but if Genius really has the power to rival the Queen, why did he join the Fatui? Although I don't know what happened exactly, since he defeated General Thunder, he should have got the heart of God. Rosaline didn't care how Genius defeated Thor. As long as he got the heart of God, it was enough. After all, Inazuma's god is not as weak as Barbados. He is not like Rock God, who signed a contract with the Queen to get Thor's heart of God. Fatui must face Thor directly. When she thought of this, the lady was not so dissatisfied with Genius's departure halfway. Even if Genius was not one of the candidates for the task of collecting Thor's heart of God. But since he got the heart of God, he is a hero. After waiting outside the castle tower for a long time, Kamisato Ayaka finally saw his missed sister, but before he could speak, Kamisato Ayaka had already pulled him towards the Mulu tea house. Some things can't be said outside. After returning to the Mulu tea house, finding a safe room, and even calling Thomas out, Kamisato Ayaka finally felt relieved and told her brother the news she had learned in the castle tower. Kamisato Ayaka, who had not yet calmed down from the joy of his sister being safe and sound, learned such terrible news. You mean that Fatui executive intends to send all the consciousness of the Inazuma people into dreams? Kamisato Ayaka clenched his fists. Even before, the impact of the closed country order and the eye-hunting order was far less serious than the consequences of the dream that Kamisato Ayaka said. Although the former put Inazuma in trouble, but no matter how difficult it was for the Inazuma people, they would not be completely unable to survive. But covering the entire Inazuma's dream, this is a direct attack on everyone, and this whole group of people naturally includes the Kamisato family. We must stop this plan, and we must never let the general be deceived by the fools again. Kamisato Ayato pinched his eyebrows. Even as a citizen of Ming Shen and a believer of General Raiden, he felt that General Raiden, the ruler, was doing a bad job.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.